I'm joined here today by my colleagues, and I'll just list their names. Councillor Michael Flaherty at large, Councillor Michelle Wu at large, Councillor Ed Flynn, District 2, Councillor Anissa Sabi George at large, Councillor Lydia Edwards, District 1, Councillor Ricardo Arroyo, District 5, and Councillor Matt O'Malley, District 6. Thank you to all of them for joining me. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv, and it will be rebroadcast on Comcast Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Verizon Channel 1964. The Council's FY21 budget review process will encompass about 27 hearings over roughly 6 weeks, along with 9 working sessions. And we very much encourage residents to participate in this. So if you're watching from home, you can testify at one of these hearings. You can do that by joining the, you can do that by going online and finding the public notice. There's a Zoom link. You can also email any testimony to ccc.wm@boston.gov. And you can go online to the Boston City Council's website, boston.gov/council-FY21Budget to learn about our whole Boston budget process and also to enter your testimony there. We also have a way to enter video testimony, recorded video testimony, this button. And we'll also take testimony in any language and commit to getting it translated for the whole council. So we invite people to testify before us in their own language. We have also held a public testimony hearing last week, and we'll be holding a couple more on the 26th and 28th of May. Those are dedicated public testimony hearings towards the end of this process after the departmental hearings, but every departmental and BPS hearing, we take public testimony at the end. You can also informally tweet us your questions using the hashtag BOSSBudget, BOSBudget, and my staff are monitoring that. So today's hearing, I want to just note that we have also been joined by my colleagues, Councillor Liz Breeden from District 9, Councillor Julia Mejia at large, and Councillor Kim Janey, District 7, and Council President. So thank you again to all colleagues for being here. Today's hearings on docket 0588 to 0590, orders for the FY20 budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations, for the school department, and for other post-employment benefits, OPEB. Docket 0591 to 0592, orders for capital fund transfer appropriations, and dockets 0593 to 0596, orders for the capital budget, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. So those dockets collectively make up the city's proposed budget submission for this year, which was introduced on the second Wednesday of April. And today our focus areas are going to be the capital budget, an overview of that, and the public facilities department. Before we get started, I want to just give a little bit of context. So the council held a working session on these topics, on the city's capital budget and the public facilities department, based on the materials that the administration had submitted last week. And that working session was recorded, is also being rebroadcast on the channels I mentioned before. And the link to it is actually connected to it's posted at the public notice for this hearing. So if you're interested in seeing sort of part 1 of this conversation, where the councilors talked about important priorities for the year ahead and things, and sort of council concerns and questions about the capital budget, you can watch that working session. That working session resulted in a list of formal questions, a 10-page list that was sent over to the administration. Carrie, if you could just put that up on the screen so people can see what it looks like. So this is as I said, a 10-page document that was sent over to the administration last week with councilors' questions, both on sort of general capital and then on specific capital projects. Now, the capital budget for people watching at home it's unusual because a lot of the capital projects are actually in specific departments. So for instance, it might be a capital project, but it's a library that's being built, or it's a park that's going to be improved, or streets that are going to be improved, right? So some of the questions that the council asked about the capital budget, we do expect to have be answered in the streets hearing or transportation hearing, the BPS or BPL hearings. And so you'll see, and councilors are aware, that some of those specific project questions may get deferred to those future hearings. But a number of broader questions will be the subject A, ones about the Public Facilities Department as well. And then I think the folks from the administration will make efforts as they're able to answer some more specific questions as well. So we're grateful to them for using this list of questions to prepare their presentations today. And with that, I just want to recognize our expected speakers today are Justin Sterrett, the Budget Director for the City of Boston, Pat Brophy, Chief of Operations for the City of Boston, Ellen McDonough, Assistant Director for Planning and Management, Susan Wright at the Public Facilities Department, Susan Rice, Assistant Director of Operations at the Public Facilities Department, and Robert Melvin, Assistant Director of Construction and Operations at PFD. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from them. We will begin with City Budget Director Justin Sterrett. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Councilor. I'm gonna share my screen. How's that coming through?
Looks good.
Great. So thank you, Councilor, and thank you, Councilors, for being here. I'm going to do a quick overview, some of which you have already seen, but then get into some more detail and try to cover many of the questions that you had in my presentation, and then shift it over to our colleagues in the Public Facilities Department and Pat Brophy, Chief of Operations, to do an overview of their presentation as well as answer some more of your questions. And if there are any that we missed, we are happy to answer them after the fact. So without further ado, the capital plan is truly a citywide effort. It encompasses every department. It's different than the operating budget because we work so closely with the public facilities folks who implement and deliver a vast majority of the projects that we're going to talk about today. So I want to sort of thank them and their staff for all the hard work that has gone into building this plan over the last 6 months or so. It really is a true partnership with PFD, so I'm thankful for them. Obviously, we're entering in a slightly different budget process this year, and recognizing that a lot of the questions that the council raised in your working session, as well as some of the sort of the obvious questions that are out there about the capital plan and how the coronavirus pandemic and response to it is affecting the capital plan. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what we do know and what we don't know. So before I dive into the overview, I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about what we know and what we don't. Obviously, everyone knows on March 23rd, all non-essential construction was halted in the city of Boston. That includes all city projects. Projects that were under construction will have the most immediate effects of this shutdown, but how long they're delayed will depend on when the order is lifted and how quickly those projects can remobilize and in what fashion those projects can remobilize. I will put a caveat on that. Is still very early in that process, and we do not know the effects of what construction projects might look like when they reopen, but it's something that PFD and a whole host of city folks are thinking about a lot, and how do we return to work safely. The other part of the capital plan, projects that were either in planning, study, or design phase have continued unfettered during the COVID response, so we're excited to know that those are all still moving along at normal paces, and we don't expect many delays because of this. There are a host of other effects that may emerge, including effects on outside funding, including state funding, federal funding, and other sort of broader changes in what a post-COVID-19 construction world looks like that unfortunately we don't know at this time, but it is something that we are going to continue to monitor. We feel as of now, we have not been made aware of any changes to state or federal funding that we have planned for this budget, but it is certainly something that as the state manages their budget process over the next couple months, and the feds obviously continue to talk about a stimulus and talk about things that they may be able to do, we're going to keep a watchful eye on that and see what type of resources might be made back available to the city. So moving on to the capital plan overview, as you know, the capital plan is different than the city's operating budget and makes up and covers major construction projects, renovation, and maintenance upkeep programs throughout the city. The plan stretches over a 5-year period to allow the city to plan, design, build complex projects across every neighborhood in the city. The capital plan is the city's roadmap to maintain our inventory of assets like roads, bridges, schools, and parks. The city uses a combination of GEO bonds and federal and state grants to fund that plan. The general obligation bonds we issue are funded through the debt service that is appropriated every year in the annual operating budget. The capital plan invests consistent with the IB 2030 plan and the umbrella plans that fall underneath it, like Build BPS, Go Boston 2030, and many more. For this year's plan, the FY21 through 25 capital plan, 90% of the capital plan is invested consistent with IB 2030, and the remaining 10% goes towards some of our core infrastructure like IT projects throughout the city. While are not directly mentioned in IB 2030, are core things that we have to do throughout the city. So since FY14, the city has grown the size of the capital plan by over $1 billion, or about 70%. This has come through new investments in schools, new libraries, parks, and new transportation infrastructure throughout the city. The city has also increased the number and amount of grants we receive from both the State School Building Authority and other resources like Chapter 90 and federal grants. That's something that we've really prioritized, is not only increasing the city investment, but also making sure we're accessing as much state and federal dollars as we can, something that had not really been done in the sort of consistently over the past 25 years. As you know, the city has undertaken a considerable amount of planning efforts, and the capital plan is starting to see the impact of those new projects as they move into design and construction phases. For FY21 through 25, the city is growing the capital plan to reflect these projects and will reach the $3 billion threshold for the first time. On this chart, you will see the breakdown of the entire capital plan by Imagine Boston 2030 category. The city spends about 30% on roads, bridges, and transportation, about 24% on schools, about 10% on public safety, about 12% on parks, and the varying other departments make up the rest. For FY21 through 25, the plan proposes to add $538 million of new general obligation borrowing over the next 5 years. Of that new funding, we're proposing to add $139 million for schools, about 26%, $144 million, or about 27% goes towards streets, $79 million, or about 14% goes towards public safety, $55 million, or about 10% goes towards health and human services, $57 million, or 11% goes towards parks, environment, and open space, and about $48 million goes towards, or 9% goes towards civic spaces. When building the capital plan, the city has a statutory 7% cap on debt service as a percent of the city budget. As you can see here, our planned borrowing over that time, over the next 5 years, increases our planned debt service level closer to that 7% threshold. We've been able to do this because we benefit from a AAA bond rating, and we were able to add a significant amount of new funding over the next 5 years and still live within that 7% debt limit. So now moving on to some of the major new FY21 capital investments. This does not include everything in the plan, but highlights some of the major new projects or funding changes. My colleagues in PFD will get into more details on some of the major projects that they manage shortly. So the major new funding for this year starts with Build BPS. We are adding about $140 million in new capital for BPS that continues the promise of the $1 billion Build BPS program and keeps us on pace for that. The new funding includes $12.6 million for the Boston Arts Academy, which is under construction, $500,000 to support the initial K through 6 expansions happening over the next year or two, and $2.5 million for a grade 7 through 12 master plan that the superintendent and the BPS department is working on right now. We'll also be increasing our major projects reserve by $77 million up to $230 million. This reserve is where we fund major projects that are coming down the pipeline, including projects like JQUS, Charter School, and many, many more. Funding from this reserve transitions to standalone projects when they are ready to move in design and construction. The reason that we do that is because during the capital plan process, there is oftentimes changes in scope and budget that require us to either increase or decrease the budget depending on how the project's moving. And until we know, and I'm sure PFD can speak to this as well, until we get further enough in design that we know the project size, we don't sort of individually budget projects. So in addition to the $1 billion Build BPS plan, and something that we're really excited to talk about today, is a real recommitment to some of the core maintenance work that will touch as many schools as possible over the coming year. This includes $7 million for kitchens phase 3. As you know, 58 schools have received new kitchens during phase 1 and 2. This includes $10 million for new bathroom renovations and $10.5 million for new drinking water upgrades at schools. We will also utilize for the first time the Renew Boston Trust and the Capital Maintenance Fund for schools at about $20 million each. We have some smaller but important projects as well, like entryways, radiators, and fire systems to make sure we're getting as much into schools as possible to make sure that as the larger Build BPS plan moves through the process, that we're still making some of those core maintenance investments that we need to make. Overall, this is a very significant investment on top of the Build BPS money, and these are projects that we are confident we can move forward with quicker than some of the larger rebuilds and renovations and transitions. Moving past schools, the second biggest area of increase is in transportation projects. Most of the programs in this year's plan aim to improve the state of good repair for all different types of assets we own, like ramps, roadways, slow streets, and other Vision Zero projects. They include $14 million for new dedicated bus lanes, $9 million per year in new pedestrian ramps that will allow the city to reach a state of good repair and full ADA compliance by 2030. This investment will almost double the number of ramps we reconstruct every year from about 900 to over 1,600. It includes $1 million for new blue bikes, including 11 new stations to expand the network. It includes $9 million for more neighborhood slow streets. It includes $1.5 million for crosswalks and lane markings in order to maintain a state of good repair and improve roadway safety. And finally, $1 million to help support streetlight asset management and stray voltage assessments, which will improve resident safety as well as help manage our inventory. Outside of the major state of good repair projects, the other major investment we want to highlight on the transportation side is the Northern Avenue Bridge. Currently, the capital plan has a $46 million investment in the project. The FY21 through 25 plan assumes adding an additional $54 million for a $100 million total project. This will allow the city to build a transformative multimodal bridge that prioritizes pedestrians and shared public space on the waterfront. This Boston Bold design will preserve the historic elements of the former bridge, and there will also be a public pavilion that will create a vibrant public space that can be programmed. So that's one of the major ones we're really excited about. Moving on to climate resiliency. Last year, the city committed to investing 10% of all new capital funding towards climate resilience. In FY20, we exceeded that 10%, including major new projects like the 4-Point Channel, Langone and Pupilo Park, and Rutherford Ave. This year, again, we will again exceed 10%, and the signature projects in this year's plan include the Curley Community Center and its $4 million worth of resilient aspects of the project, a new phase of the Renew Boston Trust, and finally, a new climate resilience fund that will be used to help fund resilient components of other projects throughout the city as they become available. One of the things that we learned through the Curley Community Center process is that oftentimes projects are choosing between programmatic or policy areas versus some climate resilience aspects. So we thought we would identify a pool of money that other city projects can access to make sure that they can make them as climate resilient as possible without sacrificing any of the core programmatic or policy needs that the project has. So we think that that's an exciting new model that we're going to pilot this year and see how it goes. Moving on to parks and open space, the city has over 80 parks projects already in the works across the city, but some of the major new projects in this year's plan include $7.5 million for a new Back Bay Fens pathway project and $3 million for a Millennium Park Pathways project, new funding to renovate Malcolm X Park and Jeep Jones Park. We have also expanded programs to install safety surfacing and playgrounds, and as we mentioned in the operating budget overview, increased our annual street tree budget by about $2.5 million. Finally, moving on to some of the major community and municipal buildings, the FY21 through 25 plan includes a $15 million increase for the BCYF Curley Community Center to $30 million total. Obviously, it includes the $4 million in resiliency aspects we talked about, but also includes $11 million in additional scope and projects coincide with the final plan, and I'm sure my colleagues in PFD will get into that. The capital plan also includes new funding for the new East Boston Senior Center at $5.6 million, the new Marshall Pool at $2.5 million, and $15 million to really make an investment in maintenance and upkeep of municipal buildings throughout the city, and something that we want to make sure we're prioritizing in addition to the signature public-facing investments, making sure that the rest of the city government and city facilities are up to speed as well. So this was only a sampling of all the capital projects in the city, and I would encourage you to visit budget.boston.gov and access our capital map, where you can search for any address or any neighborhood. You will find all the different types of capital projects going on, and that's something that we really encourage folks to access to see everything going on, because there is a lot going on in every neighborhood. So that'll conclude my portion, and I'm going to turn it over to Pat Brophy and PFD to get into more details about the work his office is doing to deliver on some of these major projects. And I'm happy to take questions after they're done.
Thank you, Justin. We're going to pull up a slide so that we can do a quick presentation, and then we'll walk through that. Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Everyone hear me okay? Okay. Good morning, councilors. Good morning, Chairwoman Bach. Happy to be here in front of you for the first time as your Chairwoman of Ways and Means, and look forward to a robust conversation and welcome the rest of the new councilors as well. Madam President, thank you very much for convening this as well. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Pat Brophy. I am the Chief of Operations for the City of Boston. On the call as well, on the Zoom as well, there's a number of staff people either watching on TV or watching on the call, and I'd like to just call them out just so people are aware of the hard work that's and the team behind me. Normally, there would be a director of the Public Facilities Department presenting, and that for the past 5 years has been Tricia Lyons. Tricia Lyons served the city for about 30 years, and she got a great opportunity to go work at Babson College, and she left right in February. So we are currently without a director at the Public Facilities Department, but the team that I'm about to call out has been stepping up every single day on every single issue, and we have felt no lag on that right now. So Ellen McDonough, proud resident of formerly of South Boston, now living in Dorchester, is a former Latin school and Harvard grad. She's our assistant director of planning and management, wonderful human being, and you guys have probably met and interacted with her during the school department. We were lucky enough to hire her over here to come on board with us. So she's a wonderful addition to the team. Susan Rice is a woman from West Roxbury. Hi, Susan. How are you? She formerly worked over at Inspectional Services as an attorney and is now working over with us as an operations capacity over at Public Facilities. Tom Leahy from Dorchester, former 30-year Cedar Grove Civic Association baseball president, but has been working in the department for the duration of his tenure. He has been gracious enough to stay on the job while he put in his retirement papers recently and decided to stick around to help us through the transition with the director. And then lo and behold, the pandemic hit, and we're lucky to have Mr. Leahy on board and help us through that transition as well. He's been a incredible value to the department over the years, and thank him for his service. Carlton Jones, for some of you may or may not know Carlton. Carlton is also an assistant director. Carlton worked at the Boston Public Schools for a number of years, and when the mayor decided to merge the capital projects from the school department and the Public Facilities Department to make one department responsible for major construction, Carlton was part of that team that joined over at Public Facilities. So he has a wide breadth of knowledge and experience in Boston Public Schools as well. And then lastly is Rob Melvin from Hyde Park. Rob has been with the department for a number of years and has been stepping up to do a lot of projects during this pandemic where there's needed emergency response and emergency access. And he's been doing a great job. He has a son at Latin school, and we're well represented in the exam schools and the Boston Public Schools as well. I myself am a graduate of Boston Latin Academy, a proud graduate of Boston Latin Academy, and this is my 25th year with the City of Boston, my 5th year in this role. So I just want to make sure that you're not as, you're only as strong as the team behind you, and the Public Facilities Department has really stepped up in the absence of the director and continues to step up and provide quality product to Boston's constituencies. I would be remiss if I didn't call out my friend Justin Sterrett, Emma Handy, and specifically Jack Hanlon as well. These are the people that help put this budget together, so it is not done in a vacuum. It is done in a very collaborative sense, and we are trying very hard to make sure that everybody's on the same page with everything. So OBM is a great group of people. They're working hard, and we're getting a lot of responses, and things are continuing to move through during this process. So I want to make sure that we call them out as well. I'm going to walk through a few of the next slides just to kind of give you an overview of where we are with the department, to like familiarize some of the new counselors and to re-educate some of the ones that you know, may or may not know exactly what we're doing. Next slide. So this year, as everyone knows, it's been a big challenge. We took as a city, an 18,000 person workforce and made them go remotely. We have about 80 people over at the Public Facilities Department, and we seamlessly transitioned from work from office to work from home. We have a lot of people working hard on that. Ellen has been great about getting us up, and our friend David Elgis and the Department of Innovation and Technology has been great in helping us tee up and get everything squared away for that. In just the last 2 weeks, we began piloting a new tracking system, an e-builder. That was something that we came to the council last year on. We procured that. We worked with DoIT. We worked with our colleagues in the Streets Cabinet and the Environment Cabinet to make sure that it was a system that could be used across all platforms. And we have been working that out, and we started piloting this over the last couple of months. It just happened to time exactly at the time when we were starting to work remotely. But it's basically an electronic construction project management database, and we're going to implement that, and it's going to hopefully help us with better reporting and better notifications about where we are on a bell curve in terms of change orders and in terms of liability for overages on any of our projects in construction. So it's a good tool for us to further analyze the data that's coming in, realize what's happening in real time, and kind of acting about that to make sure that what we're doing is in the best interest of the taxpayer money. So when the mayor announced the construction pause, just wanted to touch a little bit about that. All sites within the city were buttoned up. We gave people a week to button things up and closed them on the 17th. Every one of the City of Boston construction projects has been paused that are in construction. What our clerk of the works go out to do is they check to make sure that they were buttoned up properly, that no work is continuing out there, and that the site is safe and secure despite whatever's happening with the weather and things of that sort. So they are actively looking to make sure that anything on the site is properly buttoned up and closed up, and that they're staying in constant contact with the folks who are the GCs and the subs on the site, so that when the construction pause is lifted and they've supplemented their permit application with a COVID safety plan, that they'll be able to hit the ground running. And so I can talk a little bit about that roll up as well, as ISD falls under the operations cabinet as well. We are rolling out those new guidelines in the wake of the COVID-19 to ensure that any and all work happening will happen after the pause is lifted and conducted in a very safe manner. We are working on a number of initiatives there to make sure that is safe for all workers, not just City of Boston workers and City of Boston projects, but every single project. Things that we're going to be looking for are site safety, use of PPE, education and communication, safety plans on hygiene, on trash management, on porta potties. We're going to make sure that people are wearing the proper protective equipment. We're asking the contractors to come out and provide to the Inspectional Services Department a plan for what they will do to make sure that their workers and all workers on the site are safe. Things like how can we ensure social distancing? They will write those up. They will submit that. They will sign an affidavit. And once they sign that affidavit, they would then be allowed to continue on with their work if it's essential. And when the construction pause is lifted, that work will then proceed from there. Our inspectors will be out to make sure that they're adhering to their own plan. It's part education and part enforcement. So we want to make sure that all of the construction industry understands the severity of this situation, understands the need to continue the social distancing practices that we've all done, and make sure that all of our workers are safe. So we also have had some assistance with the emergency work. Robert Melvin and Robert Miller have been working, and a whole host of the designing and project management teams and clerks have been working to do a couple of things. We were helping with the layout and the programming and the outline of how the Boston Hope Hotel would work at the BCEC. And we were, brought in for our expertise in terms of logistics and manpower and layout and design. We also worked on renovating a space at 41 New Chardon Street, which is right behind the EDIC building behind A1 in Boston, downtown Boston. That was a formerly used women's shelter that the state had vacated a year ago. And it obviously needed a little bit of work, and we were trying to figure out what our next steps would be and our next partner would be. And as this thing hit, we submitted a request to the DCAM up at the state for an emergency waiver to do work on that site to get it up and ready and habitable for de-densification. And now I'm happy to announce that that was ready last week. There are cots available, and we are working with Sheila Dillon and the housing team to identify the right partner and the right group and the right people that we may need to put in there if the need arises. So that's been a whole host of design, construction, and clerk teams that have been out there putting cots together, bringing them in, making sure that the work is done, making sure the work is done in a safe manner, making sure that they're adhering to a safety plan and that everybody's using the proper PPE. So that team has been very on top of that, and inspectional services has been very happy as well. So we're creating additional capacity for de-densification when and if it's necessary, and I hope and pray that it's not. Next slide. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the Public Facilities Department and how our work differs from other agencies. The Public Facilities Department is basically the construction wing of the city of Boston. So we do the programming, the design, and the construction of all city work on city-owned buildings. So you have a whole myriad of departments throughout the city who have, small alteration and repair and management teams, fix a broken window, or, the heat isn't working, or there's a clogged toilet. They'll fix and adjust and do that work. But when it gets into work that's above $100,000, statutorily that falls under the Public Facilities Department. The Public Facilities Department is one of the only departments in the city that is created through an act of the legislature, and it requires that all major construction work that requires multiple trades and at a value in excess of $100,000, that work then falls under the control, custody, and the oversight of the Public Facilities Department. So it's basically all Chapter 149 projects. So other departments can do purchase and installs and can do some Chapter 30 work, but all Chapter 149 work needs to be funneled through the Public Facilities Department. So there's a number of people that do development in the city. As you're all, I'm sure, aware, the Boston Planning and Development Agency is responsible for monitoring private development, planning, including the Article 80 process, and managing anything like large urban planning initiatives. And we do work with them whenever we need to do, some either title work or work with them around development or work with them around real estate transactions like the Winthrop Square that you guys approved years ago. So they're in charge of the large private development stuff. The Department of Neighborhood Development does all the housing stuff. So Sheila's team talks about the housing, and that's, the private housing, the partnerships with the nonprofits, and the overall housing strategy comes out of the Department of Neighborhood Development. The Public Works, Transportation, obviously they do streets and they do infrastructure repair and they do signalization and all that stuff. So that's a lot of the horizontal work and the Chapter 30 work. And then the Parks Department, which does all of our green space, open space, active play space. They do wonderful work throughout the city, and they are also funded through the capital plan. But that's, non-building projects. That's horizontal. So that's that work. Next slide. So what do? We manage and we plan with the various departments. We plan with the budget department, and we plan with all of this basically our clients, the other departments throughout the city, to program, design, and construct any project in city-owned buildings. So these projects are funded through the mayor's capital plan. And again, we're taking the advice and counsel from the departments. It's funneled up through the budget office. The budget office and my offices work together to kind of come up with a plan, develop a cash flow, develop a scope, and set that plan for the next 4 years. And then we bring it to you for your review and approval as well. And obviously, your input and the constituents of Boston, the inputs are very important as we start to develop these plans. The mayor's 21-25 capital plan is roughly about 38% of the overall capital plan, which correlates to about 125 projects throughout every neighborhood in Boston. They are in every neighborhood, and we partner with every single department, like the schools, community centers, public library, fire, police, and we manage all those projects, and we work with them on a weekly basis to update them on the progress as projects go into design and then further into construction. Next slide. The projects are basically delivered in two ways. We are governed through the Massachusetts general laws as to how we can bid these projects. It is very rigid and very, it's a very rigid process. All of our project managers, they come with some kind of construction background and a good education, and they're very talented people. But when they walk in the door, life is different than the private sector here. We only bid the projects through Chapter 149. There are two methods there. There's the Chapter 149, your typical design bid build, and which under that scenario encompasses a majority of those projects. We typically play a role in assisting the user agency and OBM in defining that scope, as I said, and then it gets into the capital plan, and then we get into the further deep dive with the deeper programming, maybe some siting studies, maybe some programming studies, which I can talk a little bit down the line. That feeds into the design process, which is heavily regulated through Chapter 7. So we select all of our designers through the Massachusetts General Laws Chapter 7 process, which is the designer selection board. The designers basically come in, they propose they take a look at the scope of work that we're proposing. From that scope of work, we then accept qualifications through a request for qualifications through the Chapter 7 publicly advertised bids. We bring in all of the designers that have responded to that RFQ. Once they come in, we take a look at them with our user agency and project management team at PFD, and we decide which fits best, who has experience working in an urban setting with a municipal building, historical in nature, or programming libraries or programming schools. And we kind of try to find the right design team that has the right experience to jump right into that project so that we can start to have a good conversation with our constituents and our clients, meaning the department that we work. But that basically, that programming feeds into the design, the study and the programming feeds into the design. After the design is reviewed, we go out and we do a lot of our community meetings. We refine the design. We work very well with folks. We've been lucky to have a very collaborative relationship with a lot of the constituencies that we serve, because they generally see that when we show up, that means that the mayor is investing in the building that they care about. So it's a pretty good and collaborative process for most of our projects. So we move through that. Once it gets through the design, then it starts the Chapter 149. It's the public advertising, and it's the bids, and it's the filed sub-bids. And then once we accept the lowest qualified vendor, lowest qualified general contractor, then we would award that job and give them a notice to proceed and move on. So that's how that works with the Chapter 149. And we kind of work our way through that public procurement process. The other stuff that we do is we will work in the Chapter 149A, which is basically the design build. That's a new way that was a new method of delivery that was given to municipalities across the Commonwealth after construction reform about a decade ago. it requires projects of large size and large magnitude. We can ask to go through that method. We'll generally bring on an owner's project manager, and basically what happens is the team works together and design and builds the project similarly. Projects that we've been doing that on successfully, things like the Central Library in downtown Boston, the Bruce Bowling building was one of the ones that we've done like that. We've also done things like the Dearborn School, the Boston Arts Academy, which is currently under construction, is through that way. We'll be working through the Josiah Quincy School that way. We'll be working through the Carter School that way. We'll be working through Court Street renovation that way. And we obviously are utilizing that with the renovation of Boston City Hall Plaza. So what it basically does is we supplement our team with an OPM. It requires the contractor gets hired during design, and they participate in the development of those design drawings. And basically what we're seeing as a result of that partnership is that we're finding efficiencies in the way in which we design. We're finding efficiencies in cost and scope and magnitude and overall impact. So it allows us to sort of work and be malleable and get everybody squared away so that that squares away in a more collaborative approach. It allows for early construction packages, so we can bid things out in tranches. So it might be site development or utility work, and then as we start to do foundation and steel, we can move that up. And it allows that to move forward while the rest of the building is being designed in tandem. It is a very complex delivery method. It's probably most like what we would imagine is happening in the private sector, but it's unusual during in a highly regulated Chapter 149 process. It still requires some advertisement, and it still requires a lot of sign-offs. So it is more coordinated delivery. It does have a higher quality outcome. These projects, given their size and complexity from birth to end, can take somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 years, depending upon the funding sources. But we're working well to try to keep expediting that, finding efficiencies in the way that happens. But we've seen some success with the Chapter 149A CM at risk method of delivery. So you can see from this document here, we pick up a little bit in the design in the CM selection in the early construction phase, so it starts to see progress earlier, which is also a benefit to our constituents and helps us with the planning of the next couple of years as we go on to the next slide. So before you today is the FY21 recommended budget, totaling $7,246,344. This represents a 1% increase over our 20%, our fiscal year 20 budget. What you can often expect from an organization such as this, over 94% of our budget is allocated to personnel expenses, while about 5.5% are allocated towards our typical operating expenses. This 1% increase in the FY20 budget is due generally to the cost of living associated with collective bargaining agreements. I can tell you that our caseload right now has not slowed down. We are managing over 80 projects with a budget of more than $1 billion. In FY21, we're looking forward to taking on 18 new projects that are valued at about $60 million. Next slide. In terms of the department itself, we have 69 full-time positions, which includes about 9 vacancies. We are hiring a couple of new clerks and a project manager as well, and we are expecting to hire those folks to help us with some of the initiatives like the Renew Boston, initiative, which is a energy conservation measures that we're running in coordination with the CFO's office and the environmental office, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get further on in the presentation. Within that department, everyone is OSHA certified, has their 10-hour card, so safety is a big piece of it. We have been providing PPE to all our team throughout the duration. Obviously, more PPE is forthcoming with the masks and the gloves to comply with the COVID-19 safety precautions. We have the ability to speak 6 languages there: Spanish, Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean Creole, Cambodian, Portuguese, and French. The majority of our staff are professional design and construction people that do have degrees in project management, architecture, or engineering. The managers are responsible for overall project delivery from start to finish. So everybody sort of has a different project and a different timeline. Some are heavy in design, but they move into construction when the closeout. I think everyone here that's ever had a home improvement project realizes that the last 5% of the job takes 95% of the effort. And that's not untrue with a lot of our projects. It just, it's closing these things out, making sure that we get everything that we bought and paid for. So we're real hard on that, and we make sure that we get everything from all our startup and testing and just everything that we bought, we get. So our clerk of the works are basically the day-to-day on-site folks. So they're the ones that make sure that we're getting 2 coats of paint, not 1 coat of paint. They're the ones that are making sure that we're getting, 3/4 inch pipe, not a 1/2 inch pipe. They're making sure that it's installed the right way per the specification. They're making sure that the right screws are being used. We're very, very particular when we're looking at these city buildings, and especially when we're putting millions and millions of dollars of investment in that, and we know that we're not going to be back for a while, that, we want the tamper-resistant nails. We want the, screws. We want the ones that are outdoor, not indoor. We want all the, we specify down to the type of screw and the size of the screw, every single thing that we do. And our clerks are on site to make sure that we get every inch of that. And that they install all of the things that we are asking for, whether it's a roofing system or it's an HVAC system or it's roofs, doors, boilers, whatever the case may be, that we're getting exactly what we paid for. And so they're worth their weight in gold. So we have a lot of people in there that are, the construction professionals, but we also have a lot of folks that are experts in procurement and contracting and paying our bills, making sure all of our vendors are paid on time, tracking our progress so that we're giving timely updates to the budget office and to the mayor as necessary. And we also have a legal team that oversees the Public Facilities Commission and all of our legal documents, which, our contracts, our change orders, everything there goes through a legal review. Public Facilities Department, Public Facilities Commission is the board that oversees and approves the contracts from the Public Facilities Department. And so when we enter into a contract with design or construction, they sign off on that. There's 3 members of that team. That's Catherine Craven is the chair. Larry Mamoli is a member, and Dion Irish is also a member. So they review that once a month. They go over and review all of our contracts to make sure that we're upholding our fiduciary responsibilities with the expenditure of taxpayer money on all of these. This $1 billion plan of the mayor's. They also oversee the execution of contracts through the Department of Neighborhood Development, and they provide some legal support there as well. And we had a woman by the name of Angela Achu on that worked for us for about 10 years. She was one of the foremost experts on public procurement and public construction, and she just left to go same time as Tricia to go over and work at the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. And we were lucky and blessed enough to get a woman by the name of T.T. Lee, who is an attorney in the city's law department, and she was the de facto go-to person on procurement when Angela was otherwise working on something else. She's now joined the team over at PFD, and she has been a wonderful addition. And I'd like to say that she is a Boston Latin Academy graduate as well. She's a wonderful person, and we're really happy to have her on board as well. I meant to mention that at the beginning when I talked about the team. Next slide. A couple of things here. I just wanted to, again, we talked briefly about the eBuilder software, but that's basically a database that helps track projects. I do want to make sure that I call out my district city councilor, Frank Baker, who was a proponent of that way back when. Thank you for your support on that technology. It's helpful, and it will certainly pay dividends as we start to farm out and find the right way to not only report, but also forecast where change orders and lags are. So that's been a really positive thing. We've been asking for that e-builder and trying to get the right system that works across all platforms for about 5-6 years, and working closely with Chris Cook's team and Chris Osgood's team. and the budget office and David Elgis and the Do It team, we've been very lucky to have this thing up and running. So it's a huge addition, and I do want to thank the council for supporting that initiative last year. Thank you very much. We are working again. We're a collaborative team at Public Facilities, so we are always working with our clients. One of the things that we're very excited about and that we piloted was the mayor gave us a directive to come up with a way to save money on energy costs. Working with the Environment Department and Kyle Spector and Chris Cook and David Musselman and the entire team over there. My team was Susan Rice and Adam Mullen have come up with a program with Justin and Emma and her entire team as well that we call the Renew Boston Trust, that focuses on energy conservation measures throughout the city of Boston. Those types of things that we're doing are very important. Obviously, I don't need to explain to this body how important it is to be smart with our energy, but also the cost of energy and the impact to the budget. And we think that the cost will eventually go up over and over and over again, and that being smart with our energy and trying to think about ways in which we can get to zero net carbon with our friend Matt O'Malley, who's been an advocate for this for decades. That basically these are things like water conservation, lighting, energy measures, boiler and chiller repairs and replacement, as well as building envelope improvements. It is absolutely the way of the future, and we are definitely looking to make sure that we can start to make proof of concept and roll that out in a very thoughtful and responsible manner. We're completing the construction on the initial $10 million pilot phase, which was 14 buildings, and that final phase will be concluded with the installation of a new solar canopy on Tremont Street at the Boston Police Department headquarters. So over their parking lot, as you come from Eggleston Square into town, on your left-hand side is the Boston Police headquarters, and right before that is a parking area. What we are doing is we are constructing a solar canopy similar to the one that is earlier up on the street in the Roxbury Community College, and so that's something that we are looking to install. That would finalize the last item in the pilot phase of the first year of the Renew Boston Trust. That has been working really well. The teams have been working really well with all of our user agencies and identifying the best places to find places. We're very happy with that. But we're now starting into phase 2. So again, we're a department that is, a capital budget, capital funded program. And so we always want to make sure that whatever we're doing in terms of project management and in terms of scale, in terms of scope, is something that will outlive the bond, and make sure that that's something that we really want to make sure that we're getting our value for our dollars. So we're always hesitant about new technology until it's 100% proven. And I think that the Renew Boston Trust phase 1, there's a lot of contracting that's involved there. There's a lot of new ways of procurement. There's a lot of new ways of analysis. And this body, again, Councilor O'Malley has been very good on that, is proving it, making sure that it works, making sure it works through the system, making sure it works through our processes here, making sure it's in line with what the state wants, and then execute it. And that first proof of concept has worked well. Very happy to promote that. We're now finalizing what we're looking at phase 2, which will probably be doubling the cost and doubling the impact. So we'll be going to approximately 31 buildings, up from 14, into about a $20 million. We're into design now, and that will probably start to get work going, I would say around September of this year. And we're already taking a look at auditing our buildings, doing investment grade audits on the Boston Public Schools. So we know that the Boston Public Schools has a very large inventory of buildings and certainly uses a lot of energy. But we wanted to make sure that proof concept and its size and scale, and implementation is something that we want to be able to do. So we will be starting to plan out what's the next tranche of projects, and we'll probably dip our toe into the Boston Public Schools and increase that by another $20 million as well. So in 3 short years, we have spent $50 million on energy upgrades and energy conservation measures. So that's a very positive thing that we're very happy to talk about. The next thing is the My Way Cafe. The My Way Cafe is an initiative that we work very closely with the Shaw Foundation to develop a way in which we can provide fresh meals to the children at Boston Public Schools. We wanted to take a look at the cost that we get for reimbursable from the federal government versus the cost of putting on the of providing the food versus the cost of fresh food or a new way of delivering. And when we took a look at the new combi ovens and the new salad bars and the new fridges and the new sort of setup and way in which people can prepare food on site, we saw that there was a benefit to not only better food, better tasting food, better nutrition, better access to fresh, clean food, and also an opportunity to save a couple bucks and make sure that our children are being fed appropriately. That's something that has been very, very high on the mayor's agenda. We are very cognizant of the fact that many children in Boston only get their nutrition, the best nutritional meal at Boston Public Schools. So we're trying very hard to work with our friends in the school department to develop ways in which it can be good and fresh and healthy. And we are seeing dividends on that. So we're going from phase 1 and phase 2. It's basically you're retrofitting a kitchen in a school, and we're doing about 18 to 25 of them between July and August. So it's really a big rush to get in there. It's a big rush to get it takes a lot with our purchasing department. It takes a lot with our budget department. It takes a lot with our design teams and our construction teams. And it takes a lot of coordination with the schools, because while they're doing their small renovations or their repairs or their improvements or their cleaning or whatever the case may be, we're also in there with MSBA accelerated repair projects, and we're also in there with the My Way Cafe. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of teams, and a lot of overlap there. And we're looking to go move into phase 3 of the My Way Cafe. This year, we're going to build new kitchens at 18 schools. That's the Blackstone, the Hurley, the EMK Career Academy, the McKinley, Latin School for my good friend Matt O'Malley. Boston Latin School will be getting a new kitchen. Perkins, the Baldwin, the BGA, the Gardner, the John F. Kennedy, the Warren Prescott, the Winship, another Costa College, the Channing, the Chittick, the Grew, the Manning, and the Roosevelt Lowell. And so you'll probably see that a lot of those, what we've done is we've segmented the city into different categories, basically geographically, that will help our contractors so that they can rotate through the schools quickly, that the impact will be less with the other projects that are going on, and that it's also good for us in terms of bidding, and it's also good for us in terms of the supply chain as we start to work our way through the inner core of the city. We want to work our way through the outer core, and these are obviously schools in Hyde Park and Mattapan as well. So that's sort of our plan for the My Way Cafe. We will be moving into phase 4 next year. So literally, as soon as we finish doing these construction projects, we get into design and get into sort of the layout and the logistics of the next tranche. So there's about 5 that are planned, and we are doing tranches of 18 to 25 each and every year. This is basically the midway point. We are working very, very closely with Brenda Casilius and Charlene and Rob Consalvo and Brian McLaughlin over at the Boston Public Schools Department to kind of line up how do we get into these schools earlier. Because obviously with school now being closed, it's presented us with an opportunity to accelerate that schedule. So we are pushing our design teams on the schools to get in and out of there so that we have a little bit of float at the end as opposed to rushing to Labor Day. So we're trying to move that so that then we can get out of the way and people can clean the schools as well and be prepared for a hopefully September restart as well. So, this does give us an opportunity to work on our schools, but again, nothing is happening until the mayor says it's okay to lift the pause on construction. So we're going to just hold fast on that and just be prepared and stand at the ready. So that's something that we're going to go. Next slide. Couple of really exciting projects. You'll see here. These are at the Boston Public Library. We are in design on the Chinatown branch. That's something that is a work with a public-private partnership, and we're hoping to deliver that to the Chinatown neighborhood. It's a really exciting project because that, in turn, along with some of the improvements to the exterior, gives some open space, and then our work at the Josiah Quincy Upper School, that's really going to be transformative for our constituents in Chinatown, and we're really looking forward to that. The Faneuil branch is a project that is in design right now. I think we're about 50-60% on that project right now. That's a $14 million renovation that's in design and will probably be out to bid sometime next year. Small renovation out at the Hyde Park branch for about $300,000. The Dudley branch, I should say the branch in Nubian Square, that is a $17.2 million in construction job. Happy to say we are at like 96-97% complete there, but that work stopped. That work stopped because we were not going to do any work until the mayor lifts the pause on that. I can tell you that it is a spectacular facility. It looks absolutely amazing. The design team, Util, has done an amazing thing. If you get a chance to drive through Nubian Square and take a look at that project we're coordinating very, very, very closely with Chris Osgood and the streets team and the MBTA. They're doing a huge investment on the infrastructure and a reimagination and redesign and reconstruction of Dudley Street, and that's having a huge impact on the plaza-like feel of the Dudley Branch Library. The vaulted ceilings, the light, the daylight, the finishes, the interior, it's really something that I think everyone on this body will be very, very, very proud to see and very, very happy to go into. It is nothing short of transformative, so really excited about that. The Adams Branch Library in District 3, this is probably my favorite project on the planet. This is something that we've been working on very, very closely. That project is in full-fledged construction. It was moving at a terrific clip, and again, it also got paused. So we are on hold with that project right now. That project will probably, we're still going to see the impact of the pandemic and what that's doing in terms of the construction schedule. But once that gets up and going, we're in good shape to keep moving both with that and the Rosendale branch. These are, the Adams branch is a completely brand new building, so we ripped down the old one and building a new one. The Rosendale branch is one that is a gut renovation, and that's in, I don't know if that's in Councilor O'Malley or Councilor Arroyo's district, but it's right on the line there. That's something that's really going well, and again, also in pause. We're doing a big upgrade to the rare books area in the main branch of the Boston Public Library, and we're working very, very closely with the team over at the BPL. That's something that, again, paused and in construction, and that is, if you haven't had a chance to check out the rare books area of the Boston Public Library in the downtown branch, it's worth the trip. It's an amazing facility. And once we're done with it, it will, you'll be very, very happy that you supported the funding of that project. So thank you very, very much. The libraries are amazing. And then obviously we're redoing the roof at the Johnson building. That's a roof repair, but it's a costly roof repair. It's about $6 million, and that's in construction. It is also paused. Other projects from the Boston Public Schools. These are some amazing projects and very impactful. I think most people that were on the body during the groundbreaking were out at the Boston Arts Academy. This is the school right behind Fenway Park. It is 174 Ipswich Street, former Boston Latin Academy site, but now the Boston Arts Academy. That is a complete brand new project. We took down the old building and steel was going up and the construction hit pause. So we're working with them to think about a recovery schedule. Initially, we were planning to be ready for September of 2021. It is taking a little bit of time to get that back up and started. It is a very complex project and it is in a critical time when we did hit pause, but we're not allowing that to move forward until it is safe and until they have a plan in place and until they've signed an affidavit. But it is the Lee Kennedy company that's the contractor there. They have done amazing work in other projects around the city and we're hopeful that they'll be able to recover schedule when that moves on. We're also doing some upgrades to the Madison Park and Brighton High School locker rooms. Those are amazing things. We talked a little bit about the My Way Cafe, but these two other projects that are important to talk about are ones that touch a lot of us. Number one, the Carter School. The Carter School is a school right behind Northeastern off of Tremont Street. If you haven't had a chance to visit that site, please do. You will become an immediate supporter, much like the team at Public Facilities is. We go out every single One Boston Day on April 15th, and we go out and do a complete deep dive, clean the entire exterior, do a huge landscaping job, bringing in new mulch, cleaning the whole thing up, going inside, repainting, doing everything we can to volunteer, because this is the site where Boston's most disadvantaged youth are. These are people who are suffering terrible disabilities. And the principal out there is a gentleman by the name of Mark O'Connor, and he's literally doing God's work out there. The mayor has made it a priority to move that project ahead and move that into a complete renovation. We have gone to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. We brought out the head of the MSBA and the CEO of the MSBA, both Jack McCarthy and Jim McDonald, along with the Treasurer Goldberg. They came out, took a look at the site, listened to what our plan was and said, we're in. And I'm happy to report that we have continued to move forward. We've been authorized by the Massachusetts School Building Authority to move forward into the feasibility study phase. We are engaging with the right people and the right design team to have a discussion about that, but we're also working with some of our partners and some of our hospitals to make sure that we are capturing all the things that we need to be the most forward-facing service to Boston's most disadvantaged students, and we're real happy about that. So that's going to be moving forward. And we will be building a new school there, so that's a very positive thing. The Josiah Quincy Upper School. This is something that I have to credit a lot of Councillor Flynn and Councillor Linehan before him on helping us come to a great answer and a great solution to a school that is in dire need of repair, and that school has been working out of a modular unit. The Quincy Upper School is basically, the Quincy Elementary School, and the Quincy Upper School is something that is, has an international baccalaureate program. They have a lot of kids that go from K to 12. It's unlike any other school in Boston. They move the kids along. There's a lot of kids that are accepted into some of the exam schools, but decide to stay for a variety of reasons, and for the good feelings that people have with Dr. Chang at the Quincy Upper School. They've been working out of a modular unit for well over a decade, and that was supposed to be a unit that was only a temporary fix while we found a new location for the school. I can tell you that for the better part of 20 years, we have been investigating different locations. sites in Chinatown do not come up very often. We ran the ground out, ran out the ground ball on almost 28 sites until we finally landed on purchasing and acquiring a piece of property from the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, and which is immediately adjacent to the modular unit. So what we'll be doing is we will be a series of moves to knock down that modular unit and build out where the evangelical church is in the adjacent parcel and building a new school there. We were planning to go out and have some community engagement about March of this year. And obviously with the pandemic upon us, that's caused a little bit of a delay on that. So that's something that we're eager and looking forward to going out to the Quincy Upper School to take a look at that and start that conversation with our community partners. We have done some massing studies to get us through and satisfy some of the requirements for the MSBA to continue along with the funding, and they have been met with they've been positively received, and we've moved on to the next phase of approval with the MSBA. So it is schedule contingent. We are hoping to have get into the ground in 2023, and then move forward from there, about a 2-year cycle there. So we have a little bit of work to go for the Josiah Quincy Upper School, but that will probably be the most expensive school ever built in the history of Boston when we're done with it. So it's a very a big deal, combined with the library work out at Chinatown, and we're excited to engage with the community on that in the next coming days. For this fiscal year, we're doing a Edwards School study, a grades 7 to 12 master plan study, a K-6 conversion plan. These are things that we work on, and we bring in talented design and education professionals to kind of help formulate the plan for that grade reconfiguration. And then some stuff with the Horace Mann relocation, a small little study there as well. Next project, the mayor is also making significant investments in the public safety realm. On the fire side, we are in construction, although it paused, at Engine 42 in Jamaica Plain. That's a brand new fire station. Approximately $23.5 million. We have vacated that site. We are putting our firefighters up in modular housing immediately adjacent to. There is no cuts in service and no impact to service delivery there. But we're going to get moving real quickly on the renovation of Engine 42 as soon as construction is lifted. Engine 17 is up on Meeting House Hill. We are in active negotiation with a property owner nearby so that we can acquire a piece of property, and then we can build the site per the specifications of former Fire Commissioner Joe Finn, who wanted to develop a first in the nation plan for sequestering areas of contamination, so that when a firefighter comes in and he's covered in soot, he can then change in an area that's like a red zone. He can transition to a yellow zone, and then the living quarters can be in the green zones. And the reason that we're trying to segment and create these spaces is that it reduces the amount of carcinogens that are in the air, and those are the types of things that we want to do to protect our workforce there. We are also in construction at the East Boston Police Station. Thank you, Councilor Edwards, for your support on that. Councilor Lamattina and all of the elected officials in East Boston. They've been fighting for this for quite some time. It will be an amazing facility. It has a beautiful view, it has beautiful corridors, and it's going to be the premier public safety police station, I would hazard, in New England. So it's really coming out nice. Again, in pause. So we're a little bit on hold on that right now as well. We are doing some work at the Boston Police Headquarters, a security upgrade. And for FY21, we're doing a study at the Police Academy, a study about space at the B3 and E18 stations. So that's in Mattapan and in Hyde Park. And then we're taking a look at police headquarters roof and an elevator replacement, because it's hard to believe, but the Boston Police Headquarters, which was brand new a couple of years ago, is in need of major capital repairs as well. So we're going to be working on that as well. Next slide. The next slide, we're also working to continue Boston City Hall Plaza and the work in the building. That is something that I think a lot of people have seen through our engagement and through our notification process. But basically, we're looking at about a $70 million renovation of the plaza on the north side. So basically from the front door of the third floor, if you were to draw a line up to Center Plaza and work your way back towards the right, towards the north entrance, and the entrance over towards the Haymarket, what we're looking to do there is install completely 100% handicap compliant, ADA compliant walkway. We're going to pick up 26 feet of grade change between the Cambridge Street and the Congress Street levels. This is a huge undertaking, and it's probably what Michael McKenna, who just recently passed away, who was the original architect of the building in the plaza, he has wholeheartedly endorsed this. We've been working very closely with our historic commissions and our preservationists, and working with some of the planners up at the BPDA, and working with the very talented design team at Sasaki, and working with our partners in the OPM and the contractor, which is Shawmut and Shawmut Sasaki, and I'm blanking on the last name, but I'll get that. We are working with them to develop this plan, and we are literally looking at starting construction last month. That's a little bit delayed because we are now allowing essential employees to park on City Hall Plaza. That is a temporary thing. Hopefully when we go back to normal at some point, we are going to be fencing off the north area of the plaza, and we will start getting into heavy demolition and investigative testing in terms of the structural capacity of the plaza. I think most people are aware that this is, people talk about it as a plaza and terra firma, but really what it is it's a roof over the America's oldest tunnel system. And you know, I love our colleagues at the T, but I don't think that they're checking the structural integrity of the steel that was installed in the 1900s underneath Boston City Hall Plaza on a regular basis. So as we start to open it up, those are things that we're going to be looking at and analyzing and making sure that our design team works. And this is exactly where that Chapter 149A CM at risk method of project delivery is so vital, because what it does is it forces the design and construction team to come up with real-time solutions and real-world solutions that things start to move in a positive manner. So we're real happy with the way that's moving, and as soon as we move into the construction pause is lifted, things are going to change on the plaza, and that will be that way for about 2 years. We are not hosting any large-scale events on the plaza. It wouldn't work. We'll try our best to accommodate folks on the south side, but we want to make sure that we maintain all of those safe, accessible emergency egress and accessible routes into the building. So those are something that I'm very much looking forward to joining all of us for the mayor's groundbreaking, to be determined. This will have a transformational effect on the plaza, and it will be a gathering place for generations of Bostonians. We are going to be including an upgrade that puts in some water features there. We're going to be upgrading to make sure that there's some permeable pavers. There's going to be a lot of new trees there. We are going to make sure that there's opportunities for public art there, and we are also going to be reopening the north entrance that has been closed since 9/11. So once that reopens, we're going to do some minor repairs to the north entrance and the accessibility ramp adjacent to the elections department. And what we've done is, as most of you are aware of, in anticipation of this phase of the construction of the plaza, the north entrance, what we've done is we've driven a lot of the transactional work from the upper levels of City Hall to the mezzanine level. And then we've done a complete rebranding on the second floor, new signage that actually makes sense, new lighting and new security upgrades. And what we've done is we're prepared for when we reopen that north entrance, that north entrance will then probably become a much more utilized area, and it'll allow people to come in off of a newly renovated plaza, come in, do their transactional work, and turn around and leave. And there'd be less need to move people up and through the building and wander around aimlessly where they don't know where they're going. So, you know, we're trying to do a lot of things in coordination with like the big moves and the big efforts to like make City Hall more welcoming, more accessible, more inviting, and ultimately helping with our constituent service delivery. So we're looking forward to that. I think that will be a 2-year project. We will probably start we will be starting on the plaza work and the utility work, and making sure that that's all brought in. As we start to build that up, the last thing will be the north entrance, so that people won't have to traverse through big changes there. Once we do get into that construction, we are going to have to modify our safety and egress plan, and we are working with the Boston Fire Department and the Property Management Department, and we will be conducting drills so that people do have a familiarity of how to leave this building in a safe and secure manner in the event of an emergency. So we are trying to think of every single thing that we can throughout here. We are also doing some work building envelope repairs to the Family Justice Center out at 989 Commonwealth Ave. That's that picture below the green City Hall. We are also going to be looking at doing some elevator work in the Family Justice Center as well. We are also going to be, this will probably come with great applause, but we're going to be working to fix the elevators at Boston City Hall. So those elevators that sometimes feel like that aren't the most reliable and sometimes break down, we're going to be putting in some smart elevators, and we're going to be phasing that so that we're doing the north side one time and the south side another time, and we're going to be prioritizing them based on which elevators have received that need the most work and that are failing the quickest. So that will go sort of one by one by one by one by one. So we'll do the north and the south, one bank, and then a north and south another bank, and so that we can continue to maintain vertical transitions for folks. So that's going to be happening as well. 26 Court Street, if you've been over there and you've seen that building, it is a beautiful, beautiful building, but with many of the buildings that were built during that time frame, there is asbestos behind the walls, and it's to the inside some of the backside of the terracotta. It is not friable. It is safe to breathe in there. We do testing in there all the time, but we are looking at renovating that entire space. We have gutted the lower floors, the uninhabited floors. So right now, Court Street is closed. Court Street is closed because of the pandemic, but floors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have been vacated when the school department left 26 Court Street and went to the bowling building. And what we're doing now is all of those floors have been abated. And now we're looking at place to transition the D&D and the public facilities groups, looking to transition them to another location. And once we transition them over to a new location, we'll be getting into gutting those and then doing a full rehab of 26 Court Street, which will help us with de-densification of some of the offices within City Hall. We are staying very on top of industry best standards and practices in relation to social distancing and relation to our response to that with city buildings. I think many people are aware that there was a movement as recently as 2 months ago that it required us to have a laptop and work in bench seating and put as many people as we can and have collaborative wide open workspaces. Well, that's transitioned, and people are tacking and changing that way to create the 6 feet of distance, and talking again about the the partitions and the cubicles. So we're going to be following the best practices. We're going to be working with our design teams to sort of start to develop capacity. So the renovation of Court Street does become a little bit more important and something a little bit more timely. And we are looking to move forward with that as things go on. And we are doing some minor repairs out at 201 River Mall, which is the city's archive facility out in West Roxbury. Next slide. So a couple of things that are going on at BCYF. The big thing is we got a Paris Street pool, major renovation. If anybody has had the opportunity, or Councillor Edwards has had a chance to host you out at the Paris Street Community Center, it's an amazing facility. It looks great. It's one of the nicest ones in the city. It's one that I point to other people when we're talking about renovating spaces, that go check it out, because it's a standard bearer. It's amazing. And now we're going to be redoing the pool across the street. So that's a really good hit for East Boston, and the mayor has made major investments in the Paris Street pool and the community center. So that's a big deal. We're also doing a $2.5 million upgrade over at the Mattahunt Community Center. That's going to be a lot of our gym and programming spaces as that's going in. And we're also doing something over at the Hyde Park Community Center, which is, a 631 modest upgrade to some of the waterproofing and spaces that have been hit by some water damage. Speaking a little bit of water damage, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the Curley Community Center, the L Street out in South Boston. I think everyone has probably at some point in time visited that space. It is an amazing facility that provides a huge amount of programming to the people of South Boston, but also the people in Boston in general. It has the most amazing views. You literally look out the door and you are looking out at the Atlantic Ocean and Dorchester Bay. It is beautiful. If this was being built today, we would never, ever, ever, ever get authorization to build that close to the water. So this is a facility that is one of a kind in Boston. And given what we know about resilience and climate action, this is susceptible. So there is an addition, and I want to thank the Budget Office and the advocacy of all of our partners out in South Boston. I can tell you that from Congressman Lynch and Senator Collins and Representative Beal and Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Flynn, and I believe Councillor George was out at that meeting as well. We had probably 300 people there to talk about what are you going to do. And at one point we had about a $15 million plan out there. We knew that plan was going to be insufficient to capture the entire scope of what was necessary out there. We are implementing some very forward-facing and new methods for combating climate action and making that building a little bit more resilient. We are going to be giving up the cellar there. That's something that we are not willing to invest any money in there. We are not going to be using the second floor with an elevator, because that would require us to get down into the cellar. And what's happening is every time there's a high tide or a king tide or a nor'easter, that cellar is completely flooded out. And the damage that it's doing to the mechanical spaces in the cellar of the L Street is just, it's amazing what years and years of salt water will do to that space. I don't think I need to talk too much about it, but there was concern about phasing that project. Phasing that project would not work economically. Phasing that project doesn't work from a safety perspective, and it would just cost more and take longer. So my recommendation to the mayor was to close that building. He has supported that recommendation, and he supported the renovation to the tune of an additional $15 million, which I am sure will be well received in the community for a total project cost of about $30 million with design and construction all in. So that's going to be a tremendous, it will be the nicest facility, this side of New York. It's going to be amazing. And we are really working very, very hard, both with the community. We do owe them another update, and it would be great to tell them that we're getting an additional $15 million for that site if you guys approve that. We're looking forward to your support on that. It is necessary. It is required to keep that building operational. And we will be closing that building after the summer programming and getting into construction mid-September, early October, and it will probably be somewhere around a 12 to 14 month renovation. And we're going to be working very, very hard because we understand how important that is, how important it will be for the youth to have a place to go during the summer, and all the programming that goes on in the intergenerational relationships that are going on there. And members of this body are frequent customers out there, so we certainly want to do a good job. And I think we have the right design team and the right collaboration going on there. So that's something that we're very, very happy to announce as well. Next slide. We're also doing a lot of important work out at the Boston Public Health Commission. The Long Island is obviously a big deal. That would have been very, very helpful right now. We are finishing up a master plan on that. We have Gensler and Ascension, who are recovery specialists, working out at that right now. They're working very closely with the Boston Public Health Commission and my colleague, Chief Martinez, to develop a master plan for the recovery center located on Long Island. I would defer to Chief Osgood on the update on the plan for, and our intergovernmental team on the plan for renovating the bridge. But we are moving forward. In anticipation of that, what we want to do is we want to develop a master plan, and that study is a review of the existing support systems for the substance use disorders out there, identification of a new support system that includes a continuum of care, including housing, and developing a space program and operational information. So what we'll have to do is we're probably going to have to, in preparation of that bridge being opened, we will probably have to barge over labor and materials to get some of those initial units up and operational, so that when the bridge connects, we'll be able to then receive people. So we're trying to time that the right way, and it is a long way away, but it will require a tremendous amount of logistics, power, safety, water, and then everything that we need to do to kind of start building out that island again. So it will develop those options. It will give us cost estimates. It will identify a phase 1 implementation plan. And we are trying to update the mayor on everything that's going on out there in real time, so that along with the bridge stuff works together, so that when we are able to open that site back up for people who are suffering with mental illness and substance abuse diseases, we'll be in good shape. The plan is to have phase 1 complete when the bridge has been completed, and a 2-year process once all of that, it could be about 2 years depending upon how those legal challenges and the collaboration with Quincy. We're hoping that people recognize the importance of this regional facility and the importance of the mental and mental health and the substance abuse care for that. So we are looking at that. We are also looking at the Woods Mullen shelter, which is right on the corner of Mass Ave and Melnia Cass. That is the women's shelter out at right on that corner there. What we're looking to do is expand the bathrooms and the bed count there. So we basically will be doing is putting an elevator, improving the foyer area, putting in an elevator, creating more space for more beds and more bathroom, new bathroom facilities. So basically what we'll do is a new bathroom in that addition that we're going to build at Woods Mullen. We'll put new bathrooms up there to service all of the women clients in there, and then decommission the existing bathrooms and create more space for more beds there. So basically what we're doing is a complete brand new bathroom and an elevator, so that we can again service folks who are challenged with mobility issues. And then we're also taking a look at a more permanent engagement center and that's in design right now, and that's something that we're trying to make sure that we take a hard look at, and that might be one of it, because that wasn't in the capital plan earlier. We're trying to take a look at the feasibility of whether or not that could be zero net carbon on day one or very close to it. So that's something that we're taking a look at as well, and I'd be happy to have that up and running once we can get going. Next slide. So that's pretty much it for the presentation right now. I do want to thank the mayor for this very substantive capital plan, and the budget office for their work on it, and I thank you for your consideration, for your approval. We're proud to deliver these facilities that Boston deserves. We take a lot of pride in what we do, a lot of pride in knowing that these facilities are something that are going to stand the test of time. That picture that you see here is a picture of the new Elliott School right on the water in the North End. That's something that's an amazing facility. Thank you for your support, Councilor Edwards. Thank you for your support, Councilor Sabi George. And thank you for your support, Councilor Flaherty, and everybody else that was there as well. That's a big deal. We're looking at that entire waterfront area. When you think about it, you've got the school, you've got the skating rink, you've got bocce courts, you've got the playground, you've got the that's getting renovated down there, and you move forward and along that playground area and park. The next space adjacent to the Coast Guard station is going to be a site where we're going to be looking to site a new North End Community Center as well. So that's something that we're working to sort of create this completely, like, the most expensive real estate in the country, one would argue. It's beautiful waterfront, looking over at the Charlestown and East Boston waterfronts, are going to have beautiful municipal uses and great opportunities for our children in the North End, Charlestown, and Boston and beyond. So we're very lucky and blessed to work on some of these very exciting projects. We've got a great project team. We have a great collaboration with labor relations, and I think that we're doing a great job with neighborhood services and providing these opportunities for us to improve and improve service delivery and enhance the character of municipal buildings. So I'll stop talking, because I think it's been it feels like an hour that I've been talking without a breath, and I apologize.
Something like that.
But I'm available to take any questions, and I hope I can answer anything that you have. And if not, we certainly get back to you with any concerns. So thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you.
Great. Thank you, Chief Brophy. And thanks also to Justin. So we're going to jump into questions. I'll start out. I think, and then I'll be going to counselors in the order of arrival. I think starting with just a couple big picture things. So a lot of council questions in our working session focused on this question of timeline, right? And I know that neither of you are any more able than we are to predict the future in terms of when we might be back at construction, and what the kind of future, what the new normal looks like, and how soon, and all of that. But it seems to me that one of the things we discussed in the opening budget presentation with Justin was just the fact that there's a real interest in, we've got a big capital budget this year, also for the purpose of trying to spend that money to help, in the ways that the city can, to stimulate our local economy, to get these really critical things that our, constituents needs done. And it seems like that's a nice plan, but that plan's only as good as our ability to actually get the money out the door and get these projects, going again is. And so I guess I saw on the slide the idea that we're still working on projects in design, as we're paused now on construction. I guess what I'm most curious about is, how are we thinking about, like, how big of a lag is it, like, from the moment where we say, okay, we're going back to construction with safety parameters, what's the amount of time we need to kind of rev everything back up? Should we all assume that construction stoppage, like, you just add that number of months, whatever it was, to the schedule for everything? Just would love it, Chief, if you would speak a little bit to that question.
Thank you. I think that you've hit a question that, almost every single contractor and every single person out in Boston that has called recently and said, when is construction going to start? The answer is, I don't know. And I want to be honest with the body, and I want to be honest with everybody that calls. We don't know. I think that we are working very closely with the Boston Public Health Commission. We are taking very seriously the guidance from the CDC. And what we're doing is we want to take a look at how, what are the metrics that we want to see before we start to think about opening up construction. The things that that people talk about, a reduction in cases, an improvement, recovery, where that falls and when we decide that it's going to be okay. Right now, the only work that's allowed in Boston right now that's permitted, everything's still permitted. It's just paused. So the stuff that is off pause is essential work. The things that are off work, I'll put on a little bit of the ISD hat here, is work that is important to the critical infrastructure, work that is important to the transportation network, road work like utilities, bringing them into shelters or upgrading, like Comcast may need to upgrade its fiber to create more 5G or more ability for people to get online, because what they're seeing is more people at home. They're surging the network, so they need to create some capacity there. So there is some work that's going on in the streets. There is some work that is going on at the hospitals. There is some work that is going on in the shelters. We're obviously going to continue to allow those things to continue to go, because those are important to either the supply chain or they're important to the battle against COVID. So what we're doing is we want to make sure that everybody that gets an allowance, if you will, to continue to do work right now, that those people have, before we set out our safety parameters, they have some kind of parameters, and everyone is complying with that. What we did last week is we released draft plans for how you could frame a safety plan relative to COVID. We're going to be expecting every contractor in the city to complete that. But what the plan is that we put that out on last Friday. We received comments through yesterday. We're categorizing and responding and looking at the comments that we've got, and we're going to implement a plan this Friday. We're going to solidify that plan and make sure that gets communicated out to everybody that has essential work going on right now, and they're all going to be required to sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that they will adhere to the plan that they have submitted and that they have made. So that will happen. At some point when those metrics are squared away, what will happen is we will give notice, and we're going to give people a 2-week notice to let them know in 2 weeks we're planning to open up some building projects and road work. So what does that mean? That means that at some point when the mayor decides that it's appropriate and safe to reopen the industry, we will then we'll then notify people, and then that gives them 2 weeks to start prepping their sites and start to be prepared for how they're going to, screen people as they come in, or screen deliveries, or do whatever it is that they need to do. We're giving them that time. Right now, they can start to build their plans. Right now, they can start to develop their plans. Right now, they can submit their plans. So anybody that's trying to get ahead of when that work starts, that will go. So what we're trying to do is give people a good runway, and that they understand what we're trying to do in terms of safety. And as they plan that out, they'll be able to do it. I firmly believe that the construction industry is so creative that they're going to come up with ways to create, like they're retrofitting some of the things that we're hearing. They're retrofitting porta potties with 5-gallon electric hot water heaters, so they'll have hot water on site. They're very creative in the way in which they'll do screening stations, in the way in which they'll do signage, the way in which they'll create bathrooms and trash management. And this is why giving that information now is so important to the people in developing their plans. So when 2 weeks, the 2-week notice gets noticed, whenever that may be, based upon whatever that metric is, they'll then be able to start prepping those sites. And so when we allow that road work and that building work to go, we're going to start to see. So some building work, what does that mean? Maybe that's small jobs. Maybe that's foundation work. Maybe that's roof repairs. It's going to be street work and areas where there's open air, you know, so that's something that we want to be careful and cognizant of. And we're going to watch that. We're going to have all of our inspectors have been working throughout this pandemic. We're going to keep an eye to make sure that they're adhering to their plans and that they're categorized and that they've signed the affidavits. And then if we see that there's a broad compliance and people are working and they're getting it, then we'll open it up again. So we're looking for it to kind of be phased on an opening, but when that will happen, Counselor, I wish I could tell you it didn't.
No, and to be clear, I'm not asking when it will happen. I agree with you. I don't think that's PFD's call. I think that's the Boston Public Health Commission, and you know, it's a public health question. I think that what I'm more concerned about is this question of if you figure, you know, just for argument's sake, you had 100 projects that were in construction right now, right?
Yep.
And if they all get delayed, you know, but what we would hope for in terms of the opportunity to spend the money and help to, you know, actually, you know, commit those capital dollars, right, would be that if in say we were stopped for 3 months, right, like that we would then get maybe another 50 or 100 projects that weren't at that construction point yet, have had the chance to do a bunch of their behind the scenes stuff and a bunch of their design and whatever, and so then suddenly it's like, okay, so you're pressing start and you're not, like you say, on all projects simultaneously, it's building up. But, you know, part of my question is, does PFD have the capacity to support more projects being in active construction as a form of catching up at the point at which we get there, or does it not? Because my worry is if we don't have that capacity to sort of oversee that increased number of projects, then no matter how much we get everybody's documents in order over these months, we're still going to have a bottleneck at the point of project management. That's what I want.
So there will be that intersection, right? And so there's a couple of things to react to there. Out of PFD's caseload right now, there are 16 projects on hold. So they're all subject to that pause right now. Those 16 projects represent $190 million. So what we have done is we have communicated to all of our project managers who have communicated to all the GCs that are responsible for that construction, that this new safety plan has been proposed. We want to hear your feedback. We expect you to comply 100%. We expect you to be the standard bearer, and they're going to do that. And what I want them to do is between last week when it was released through this week, and then the following week, they're going to have to put together their COVID safety plan, and they're going to have to submit that. We want all those 16 projects submitted together so that the inspectional services can look and say, okay, here's the city projects. Let's make sure that they're in compliance with everything that's being done. Now, what will happen is, as those come, we're planning to bid 19 additional projects between May and August of this year. And that represents another $80,000. I mean, excuse me, not 80,000, $80 million in construction. So that will then put us between 19 and 16, somewhere around 35, if my math is right, I'm doing it here, 35 projects in construction. We do have the capacity with the project managers, and we will have clerks on site, and we will be able to start making that happen. It will be a very busy season when that overlap occurs. But we're also utilizing float in some of these schedules to make sure that these things sort of go the right way. Our biggest concern is the impact to the departments. So if I have something like, if I have 2 or 3 projects that have taken down 2 or 3 libraries and they've been paused, then I can't take another 2 or 3 libraries off and have 6 in the system down. So some of those, there might be a little bit of lag, and we are trying to see what the recovery schedule is, what can people do to capture. You know, right now we're in week 6 of the pause. So what can we do? How do we do that? And we're going to have to work with our contractors to see. They are going to be coming after us for what's the cost for the new COVID things that we didn't bid on, but now I have to look at. We'll work our way through that. I'm not at all concerned about that, but we're also implementing those those new standards into our projects that are going out on the shelf. So we are trying to phase that stuff, and we are, again, back to the importance of the support that this body gave us and that the budget office gave us for the tracking programs. That's going to allow us to start to see where that curve is and where is that sort of maximum upset of what can we do to maintain that level of spend, maintain those schedules, those critical path schedules, but not overburden either the system or our own project management staff. I'm never going to say to you, I have enough project management staff, and I know Justin's going to strangle me for saying it, but we always could use more resources. The budget office has been absolutely terrific with us, but we want to make sure that we're not overburdening the system when we take things down, or overburdening, the preparation for, school getting back to start. If I'm late on a roof repair job of, the George Wright Clubhouse, although that's not on the plan, that's not going to have the same effect as delaying the BAA opening beyond September. So like the big ones are the critical dates. I wish I could reopen the library on Dudley Street. That would be an amazing thing. It's a great thing to showcase. But again, we're staying on that pause. That's not going to affect things because it's going to come right off. But all of these guys, all of these construction teams, we're looking for recovery schedules. We're looking to expedite where it's necessary based upon the operational efficiencies of the system. And we want to make sure that we're getting a good value for our dollar there. So those are some of the things that we are absolutely looking at. And we definitely believe that there's a reason, we don't know how long this will go. So I can't really give you a definitive answer, like how will that affect? It will affect cost, it will affect schedule, but we are going to be looking for recovery, and we are going to be looking for operational efficiency. So from a staffing perspective, I feel confident that we can do it. We are going to hire a new director. We are going to hire another assistant director. We do have some clerks coming on board. Those are things that are moving. So we are trying to be prepared. We like to think of ourselves as one of the more schedule adherent and forward thinking departments. We try to always sort of map these things out, not just in 6-week tranches, but 6-month, 12-month, 2-year, 4-year increments.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And I'll just say to Justin that it certainly seems to me that we do not want strains us in a season of a robust capital budget in a recessionary moment to be a shortage of staff at PFD for executing on things. So, I mean, it does seem to me as a counselor that it's important that we be really assessing and reassessing in real time, what is it going to take to shorten the amount of lost time for our city projects. So, and the one question I'll just ask to Justin before, because I want to get to my colleagues, is just if you could speak a little bit, Justin, I asked some questions about kind of the point at which we actually engage the debt, I guess, and what I'm curious about again is sort of, how much has our capital budget that this body's approved tracked what we've actually gotten out the door over the last 5 years, and what are the levers we can pull to make it so that the maximum that we're actually doing the capital work and engaging the debt, but only obviously in tandem with getting to do the work in a way that pushes right up to that 7% policy limit.
Sure. So I'll try to answer those in 2 ways. So as far as tracking versus what we've spent, so the city coming out of the recession spent about $125 million a year on capital. We have ramped that up closer to $200 million over the last 5 or 6 years. Now that does, and that varies every year. Sometimes we spend 240, sometimes we spend 190. I would say that the tracking is very much honestly dictated by how capital projects are sort of more likely to go sideways or more likely to get delayed than anything else, right? I think the best example I can give is the Long Island Bridge. We expect it to be in construction and building that bridge right now, which is a $100 million bridge that would have drastically impacted the amount of cash that we have on hand. Now, when it comes to borrowing, we borrow once a year, right? We go to the market, we issue one bond a year. We are required by bond statute to expend that within 3 years. So we never sort of borrow very far in advance of a project actually going into the ground. We have sort of the ability to borrow for projects over multiple bond issuances. So basically, we'll borrow for the design portion, and then, if, by the time we get to next year, they're at half construction, we'll borrow for that. And then by the time we get to the next year, we'll borrow for the last piece of it. So when we go into the market, we structure our purchase, or we structure our bond to make sure that we're staying sort of completely in line with the bond covenants and making sure we're not sitting on cash going forward. I think what we could do to speed this up is coming out of this. There's a lot of different ways that things can get hung up in the process, whether it's in the design phase, whether it's the real estate phase, whether it's the procurement phase, the construction phase. There are all sorts of things that can slow it down. A renewed focus going into next year on delivering on the capital projects is what we'll be focusing on, mostly because we're going to be, like Pat said, developing plans for each of these different projects to sort of get back up to speed. I think that that's something that we'll see repeated in Parks Department, the Transportation Department, the Public Works Department, and all the other capital departments who are not under Pat's purview. Make sure that they are getting up to speed, because that is a concern, right? We do a lot of our construction during the summer for schools. We certainly do a lot of road construction in the summer. Parks obviously does a little bit more year round, but I think coming out of this, we're going to get renewed plans from every single contractor that we have to make sure that they're following the guidelines. And I will, and if they're not already, Pat, sort of loop in the Parks Department, loop in the Public Works Department to make sure that they're sort of getting the same expectation from their contractors about catch-up schedules and how they're following the PPE laws and how are they following the public health measures. And I think that that's going to be a nice way that we can kind of reinforce everything at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I just, Go ahead, Chief.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I just wanted to, just for the record, the budget office has been very, 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 very good with us. I don't want Justin to be upset with me in any way, shape, or form. When we ask for something, we create a rationale for staffing up or for materials. Sure. Or anything like that. They've been very, very good and very responsive. Right. We are also, just so you know, we are continuing to bid projects during this pandemic, where we did reach out to the market and did reach out to a lot of our folks to find out, are you still getting prices? Are you still able to bid? Do you still have staff available to do this work? We think that the city's been really good about processing paperwork to all of our programmers, designs, architects, and engineers. We've been keeping up with that spend on that level so that our documents are coming in. And what we're noticing, I know on the park side, and I'm expecting on our side, that the estimates here and now, because people are going to be hungry, and we might get a real good value for our buck. So we're looking forward to those bids coming in, and we are looking forward to getting a very robust construction season. And thank you for recognizing the lag and the need for support that will be very well received with the team. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Murphy. I want to recognize now my colleague, Michael Flaherty, at large, to be followed by Councillor Ed Flynn, District 2, and Councillor Sabi George. I'll again, just for folks, I have my gavel and I'll hold it up when you're on time. So thanks. Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first have to start off saying that Pat Brophy, with his glasses, as I'm looking on the video screen, looks exactly like his father 25 years ago when I worked with him for 3 years. I literally sat right next to him. So I had the pleasure and good fortune of sitting and working with Pat's dad, and hopefully he's enjoying retirement, and I'm sure he's so proud of you and what you're doing for the city. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm literally, it took me back 25 years, specifically with your glasses on. You look just like your dad. So, and also I want to compliment you on the job you did. It was a very thorough presentation with respect to capital. I had submitted questions during the working session, and very similar to our chair, had some concerns around timelines, but more if there's any grant money that we're expecting or any state funds that we're expecting, and what does this sort of, the new world we're in and the slowdown, what does that do, and how does that threaten any of our projects? And further, obviously, the spirit of collaboration, I know I speak for myself personally, I think I can speak for my colleagues, the spirit of collaboration has been tremendous in having had a front row seat when there wasn't a lot of collaboration going with the previous administration. And though we were learning about things later, we didn't really have a seat at the table. There wasn't a lot of transparency. We most definitely were not focused on resiliency It's refreshing, quite frankly, to be able to work with administration and have folks out there talking to district and at-large colleagues and community folks about planning. For a large period of time when I spent on the council, we did the nip and tuck and the patch and paint. We're going through a pretty exhaustive capital planning, which I think is tremendous. It puts our city in a great position moving forward. That particularly on the build BPS and other projects, and also the thought that is going into resiliency and making sure. And you guys are pretty astute in terms of pumping the brakes down at the Curley Recreation Center to take a look at arguably what is going to be sort of ground zero for the climate effort, and to make sure that those funds were not depleted in our response, and that we gave some thought to how we can improve it and make and move it forward. So I'm here obviously to listen to my district colleagues. As an at-large council, I'll support the capital projects in their districts and where we need to continue to throw a shoulder into it. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the great work that's going on and the collaboration and how happy and proud I am to be on this body, working with this administration as we take on capital projects, and like to get some details maybe on the Northern Avenue Bridge and on construction in general as to when we could have envisioned that getting started and what those protocols are going to look like, as well as making sure that we're keeping our eye on the ball with Vision Zero and some of the neighborhood and the street improvements, crosswalks and signaling and stuff like that. But in general, it's been a pleasure to work alongside of you and your team, and I'm sure my colleagues will feel the same way about the spirit of collaboration that has been going on during this capital process. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd love to hear from Pat on a couple of those things.
Thank you, Councilor, for the very kind words. You're as strong as the team that is with you, so I'll pass along those very kind comments to the staff at Public Facilities, and obviously at Justin with OBM as well. We do believe in climate resiliency. I work very closely with Chief Cook, and so it's a pleasure to work on something as unique as the L Street, and I want to thank you publicly and Councilor Flynn for your support and advocacy out at that meeting. You really haven't experienced life until you go into a room at L Street and tell them you're going to close down the community center. It can be a hot place to work, and the South Boston delegation was very kind and very open and very direct and very supportive. So I think that's going to work well with what we're doing there. In terms of construction, again, Councilor, I wish I had an answer for you on that. We are looking at that every day and every week. It is a priority. The mayor did have a phone call yesterday with all of the inspectors across the city. That included Parks Department, that included Public Works, that included Transportation, that included Boston Fire, and every inspector at a building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing inspector, inspectional services, to talk to them about that safety protocol. And as we develop it, we're going to continue those conversations. Those folks have been working on the front lines since day one, and protecting us and doing everything they can. In terms of funding, I would have to defer that question to Justin. We're simply, we have the luxury of helping to acquire the MSBA funding, or helping with the library, or whatever outside entity from a technical perspective. Basically, we ask for the money, you guys allocate it, and Justin disperses it. So
Sure.
there is some stuff. I don't have any actionable responses for you on the Northern Avenue Bridge. I can tell you from what I've seen and what I've heard from my colleague Chris Osgood, it will be stunning, and I'm looking forward to that. It's really an iconic moment, and I'll stop there. But my best to your dad too. I hope he's doing okay during this pandemic, and I will pass along your kind words to my father. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I'll just throw out there the three sources that we were sort of most focused on for outside resources. Pat mentioned it, the MSBA, Chapter 90, and then TNC money. I know there was a couple questions from a couple different counselors along the way about those resources. As of now, we have not heard, or we have not received any guidance that we should be expecting reductions in any of those resources. Chapter 90 obviously helps support our road and sidewalk reconstruction. MSBA, obviously a greater reliance on it actually moving forward for many of the big school projects that Pat mentioned, AKUS, Carter School. So that's definitely something we're going to be monitoring. TNC money obviously is another area that we use to supplement the both capital and operating budget. TNC money is retroactive. So we, for fiscal year 21, we will be receiving the payments from the state from calendar year 2019. So the 21 budget is secure. I think moving forward into 22, that's when we may see some effects from the sort of economic pause and the broader sort of economic slowdown on TNC revenue. But that's something that we're going to monitor. And we've actually prioritized one-time investments with TNC funding to sort of directly correlate with that. So we are not funding many staffers or many folks who are sort of recurring costs on that. So something we're going to be able to adjust as we go.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you so much, Councillor Flaherty, and thank you for keeping your remarks to 5 minutes. Next up is Councillor Flynn, District 2, to be followed by Councillor Sabi George and then Councillor Lydia Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Bach, and I want to say thank you to Pat and to Justin and the team for their exceptional work, working closely with the City Council, but even more importantly, working closely with residents across Boston. So want to say thank you to your professionalism and also say, you know, you have a new staff person there, Ellen McDonough, and she's excellent. We had a great relationship working with Ellen when she worked for the school. So I know she'll do a great job with you guys. Chief, I know you highlighted the Curley Recreation Center. Thank you to the mayor for his commitment. What I like about the Curley Recreation Center, obviously it's in South Boston, but it's used by many people across the city. And whether you're coming home from work, going to Dorchester to Hyde Park, it's an exceptional facility for so many people across our city. And I know it'll be well used by so many residents of Boston. So thank you to you and your team and to the mayor for that commitment. You also highlighted the Chinatown Library and the Josiah Quincy School, and that's going to transform the neighborhood. In the first time in 50 years, we're going to have a new public library. It's desperately needed in Chinatown. And I know the neighborhood is very excited to have that library and to have that school, and they're almost somewhat connected, and there'll be a great pathway for connecting the students right to the library, and it'll be used by the seniors as well, making sure that our Asian residents, Cantonese speaking, Mandarin speaking residents have access to books and magazines. So that's a tremendous opportunity and tremendous commitment to our city. So again, I want to highlight and say thank you on behalf of the residents of Chinatown. And one thing I wanted to highlight, it's not in my district, but I know you're committed to it. I know the mayor is committed to it. I try to go over to the William Carter School several times a year. And I've never seen a better school in my life, and the amount of work they do with students with severe disabilities. I love talking to the principal, Mark, and to the teachers, and to especially the students. But the teachers over there and the principal are doing incredible work for students with disabilities, and having a new school over there will be a tremendous accomplishment, and will help so many students with disabilities. So that's great work, and I 100% support that. I love going over there and talking to the parents and talking to the students as well. And then my last point, I know there's going to be some improvements to the Blackstone School. As you know, the Blackstone School is between the Cathedral Public Housing and the Villa Victoria as well. And so that'll be desperately, that'll be very helpful. So I want to say thank you. And then my final point is, Chief, can you talk a little about the proposed EMS facility in the South Boston waterfront? That has been a top priority of mine. I want to make sure that we have a physical EMS presence in that neighborhood. So if you can give us a little bit of background information on the EMS facility, that would be helpful.
Counselor, thank you very much. Please pass along my well wishes to your mom and dad as well, and your family.
Thank you, Pat.
Got years and years and years of public service, and you know, the city is better for your family's input. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, I couldn't agree more with you about Ellen McDonough. She's a wonderful person. She is a great resource, and we have years to go with her serving the public in a very positive way. And it's great to see, you know, homegrown talent, if you will, you know, doing well here, and it's great. I would agree with you wholeheartedly on the Carter School. Again, I encourage anybody, any member of this body, please contact Mark O'Connor, have a conversation, develop a relationship with him. What he does with those students is amazing, and you will walk out of that school feeling grateful and thankful and wondering on ways in which you can help. So as we start to develop that, we are going to be looking to acquire a little bit more property, probably through a friendly acquisition / eminent domain. We're in conversations with Northeastern University. So if you're ever talking to anyone over at Northeastern, feel free to let them know that we're 100% supportive of the Carter School expansion. I don't feel any reluctance from them, but I think that it helps when a community and all of our elected officials, as important as you guys are, to make sure that we are all singing from the same sheet of music, because it is a heart-wrenching and heart-warming place to visit, and it's a great facility, and the mayor is completely committed to it, and his vision for that is going to be something that's legacy-like. The Blackstone School is getting a new My Way Cafe, so it's a new lunch place. That's something that we will be done, and it will be done for time for September start. So we're excited about that. Again, that's along that distribution line that will go down into the southern part of the city, Mattapan and Hyde Park, and through Dorchester, Mattapan. In terms of the EMS, I think that's future funded and to be scheduled. I think that that's an important thing, to have those public safety sites. You know, as South Boston and your district grows with capacity, I'm sure that they're taking a look at the ratio for police, fire, and EMS. It is something to be scheduled. That I believe it's in 23, so that's a set of study money, and we're going to be working on that and engaging people on that. We're working with the EDIC to make sure that we find some locations, and the study, it's a standalone study for EMS Seaport. We're actively looking for a site, whether it's a shared space or a private development, and trying to work out something that we don't generally do a whole lot of, which is the public-private partnerships. And so we think that there might be opportunities for that, and we will be working with you on that. We do have an idea of what we're looking for, but it is future funded. So we are willing to engage on that, and we think you know, we support that as well. Obviously, we're going to do whatever the budget office tells us to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And again, want to say thank you to Chief Brophy, but also to Justin and the budget team, and to Emma and all of the staff there. So again, thank you, and thank you, Council Buck.
Thank you so much, Councillor Flynn. Next up is Councillor Asabi George, to be followed by Councillor Lydia Edwards, and then Councillor Ricardo Arroyo.
Thank you, Chair Bach, and thank you everyone who's here today. I do just want to just step aside from our topic of discussion today and just note for the record that the City of Boston lost a treasured member of our community here in Dorchester, Pat O'Neill, who's a great friend of mine and a great friend to many of us, passed away overnight. So just wanted to pay a mini tribute to her, and many tributes will come in the future. Thank you, Justin, for your presentation, and thank you, Coach Brophy, Chief Brophy, for your very detailed and thorough presentation on all of the things that your cabinet's doing, your department is doing. And in particular, I just want to note that we have a shared love for BLA. Maybe, I'm a Boston Tech girl, but, we love the great things that are happening at BLA, and you wear that pride very, very brightly on your sleeve. So go Dragons. You covered a lot of the topics that I have a particular interest in when we think about the capital budget and the public facilities budget. My interest, thinking too on a citywide scale, are things that impact all of our neighborhoods and all of our residents, or having the opportunity to touch all of our residents. So I was really happy to hear about the efforts around the Long Island Bridge. So if someone could maybe go into a little bit more detail around the Long Island Bridge and that effort, I think we'll have a deeper conversation or go further into the weeds during the public health hearing. And then my second topic that I'd love some touching on, at least in this round, is around the crime lab. Chief Brophy, you mentioned the solar panels in the parking lot across from headquarters. I've been over to the BPD crime lab a number of times. Again, this will likely come up in greater detail in the public safety hearing, but I know the commissioner and the folks in the crime lab really are well over capacity in their work, and they are a highly accredited lab. They are the model nationally and globally in crime lab operations, but they are well under-resourced in terms of space and access to do the work that they want to do. It's a hearing that I've called for around the crime lab capabilities and capacity. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the opportunity for at least a study around our crime lab, and again, Long Island Bridge. And I think that's it for me. Perhaps I'll have more in round two. Thank you both.
Counselor, thank you for the feedback, and thank you for your question. And I hope all of your kids are well. I had a great opportunity to coach all of them, and they're great hockey players and great baseball players, and they're true competitors. And I love them dearly. They're great kids. They're great kids. On Pat O'Neill, that is a tragedy. She's served, I believe, this body as well for a number of years, and with Councillor Feeney or Clerk Feeney, and she leaves behind a wonderful family, and it is a loss for Dorchester, and I know the people in her neighborhood right off of Nahant Street are saddened to learn about that passing. And Mayor passed that along as well today to our 8 a.m. call. So definitely an impact, and definitely an impact player. As an aside, I think most people on this body have at some point in time reached out to and worked with Ed Hesford from the Boston Transportation Department. His mom passed away last night, so if you guys want to hit him up, I'm sure he would appreciate the condolences, because it is very sad to grieve during this time. So that's a tough one. On the Long Island Bridge, I can tell you not much more than our study of the facilities will be completed at the end of September of 2020. We are working closely with public health on the programming issues around there. In terms of the bridge, I don't have any updates that I could provide of substance to you, Councillor. I apologize for that, but that would be probably more with the intergovernmental relations or Chris Osgood, and who's overseeing that from a public works perspective. Justin may have a few items to share.
Yeah, Pat, I can add a little bit of color, but definitely have a more robust conversation in the public works hearing. But as of right now, or as of a couple months ago, the city had fully designed the bridge and it had applied for all of our relevant permits. As you all know, the city's design approach has been to minimize the environmental impact both permanently and during construction. This is why the city is reusing after shoring up the existing piers and building the major bridge sections on land and floating them into the harbor. while Quincy continues to appeal each step in the permitting process. Every third-party review, including the DEP, the MEPA office of this project, so everyone who has reviewed this project from a third-party perspective has affirmed Boston's approach. Last week, the city submitted responses to comments for the Chapter 91 license, which is the next step in the process. So we are ready and willing to go on that one. We have designed it. It is ready to go. We are working through every permitting process has been appealed. We are confident that our approach will succeed at the end of the day, and we're just sort of pursuing the legal requirements right now.
And then,
Thank you. And then on the crime lab.
yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the crime lab. Obviously, the way that we work is the departments submit their priorities to the budget office. There has been a study about that. I believe it's about 4 or 5 years old. Off the top of my head, I don't know the outcome of that study. We can take a look at that, and it probably requires refreshing. And obviously, I assume there's a whole lot of advances that have happened in 5 years, and we're going to want to look where that is a couple years. I think Commissioner Gross would probably have to speak a little bit about where that falls in the priority scale. And as soon as that gets green lighted, we'll certainly be willing to work on that. Anything that we can do to support our first responders and obviously the Boston Police is something that we want to do.
Pat, if I could just add, in the near term though, and Council, as you know, both in last year's budget and in the operating budget that we did propose adding significant new staff to the crime lab, both as forensic techs and some upgraded supplies and machines for them. So that is something that while the kind of the mechanics of a total rebuild happen, we are investing in staff and support for the crime lab.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent investment that we had in last year's budget, and certainly a needed investment. One of the challenges I think that they're facing in the crime lab, in the different departments of the crime lab with that added staff, is some difficulty around being able to do the appropriate forensic work and the appropriate spacing, considering that additional staffing. And so there's some spacing challenges and requirements that need to be met when doing particular, I guess, investigations. I'm not really sure, but certainly we'll get more of that in the police hearing. And the commissioner and his team a few months ago now had put together a pretty thorough presentation for me on their needs in the crime lab. So I hope that he'll share some of that, and I'll ask him to share some of that in our hearing around police. And Chief Brophy, thank you for referencing that older study. I'll be certain to try to dig that out and see, is there an opportunity to update that? Thank you both, and thank you, Chairman Bach.
Thank you so much, Councilor Asabi George. And now next up is Councilor Lydia Edwards, to be followed by Councilor Ricardo Arroyo and then Council President Kim Janey.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Bach. I had just a general follow-up question I forgot to ask in the last hearing to Justin, and then just to get into specifics, honestly, just updates, as I'm assured that a lot of folks in the district will be asking about the amazing things you guys are doing in District 1. So just to Justin specifically, and I remember just thinking about this when libraries came up. During our divestment hearing, we had discovered, or it was announced to us, or I don't know how it came about, that there was a small fund, an investment fund into privately funded prisons that the library was getting rid of. But that they had funded that. And in general, the divestment hearing that we had, it was it was prisons. And the point of the hearing was that we wanted to remove our investment and retirement funds from those things. And what had been promised to us is that the money would be moved from that, and they were in the process of moving money from that. So if you can get back on an update of where that investment went, and in general, there was concerns about divesting from all of the fossil fuel industry. Probably would be a good move right now, considering, I guess, oil is at negative 40 cents a gallon, whatever it is. But in general, there was also some finite funds for private prisons and for armaments, Smith & Wesson and guns that we did have some of our retirement in. And so if you could ultimately give an update on whatever movement there was done. I don't know that there was a commitment to move any other money except the library's investment in private prison. So I really appreciate if you guys got back to us on that. towards my district and the incredible things that are happening. And to follow up on Chairwoman Bach's question, you know, we have the pool in East Boston, we have the senior center in East Boston, we have the Edwards Middle School, we have the North Washington Bridge, right? We don't call it the Charlestown Bridge or the North End Bridge. That will start a war. So we have all of these amazing things, and to your credit and thanks that those things were committed to and working on, and funds were allocated. And you know, we were celebrating at the ribbon cuttings. We have the police station in East Boston as well. So many good things that are happening in the district. So I can assure you, once we're out of this, everyone's going to ask when, where, what, who, and how we're going to mitigate for traffic when this happens. And so excited that we're going to get started, and upset that we're going to have traffic when it does get started, right? So I just wanted to know if you had to rank, or do you rank in terms of priority, what projects you will get done and get crews on, even if they're skeletal, and what projects you will say, listen, it's a matter of, we can wait on that. I'm curious. I have, of course, my top 10 list, but it really, you know, I really like to hear how you analyze your top 10s or priority projects.
Everything in District 1 goes first.
Excellent. Well, we're good here. We're good.
Honestly, I think what it comes down to is it's GC capacity. So these guys are bidding these jobs, and they want to move. We want to move. We feel like we have a significant amount of runway. We feel like we have a significant amount of capacity, and we believe that the labor market is there. I think that, you know, I have no empirical data to say that, but if some of the private jobs are slowing down, or any of the other private jobs, maybe they're a little skittish about it, we're guaranteed money. You know, we're guaranteed that money is coming in, that money is going out. We have a tremendous bond rating. So that's why we're seeing it's a good time to bid. That's why we're seeing it's a good time to put these projects out there. We think that we're going to get a very high quality, and we think that we're going to be able to fully staff. Again, it's really back to what we're not prioritizing ranking them on bidding them or anything like that. We're still continuing to churn that out. And it's
in terms of safety, though, I do know that the bridge, right, we had to cut off sections of the bridge literally because if a car went over it, we weren't sure of how good that would go. I would also add the other bridges over in East Boston. I think the McArdle Bridge going to Chelsea, that was a capital project as well. So some of our bridge infrastructure, I don't know, are those we have to fix this as a safety concern? I do know, I have no idea actually what's going to happen with DPS, if we're going to be open this fall, the actual facilities, but if so, as you know, is the Edwards going to be starting to be retrofitted to make sure that the sixth grades in East Boston, you know, excuse me, as East Boston pulls back and keeps the kids over there in East Boston, that I guess that's the kind of analysis. And I'm also fine with Plan A, District 1 projects go first. That's fine by me. But just in terms of how you analyze the infrastructure for safety purposes, I would assume the bridges first. I know we were going nuts, but we did need to finish the sewage lines over in East Boston. Those kinds of things, that kind of analysis, I'm just curious.
So, yeah, I think that whenever you're looking at, you know, government's basic thing is to protect its citizenry, right? So anything that we can do that's a public safety issue. I can't speak to the rank order of bridges or road work, because that is my colleague Chief Osgood's forte. But I do think that, you know, we always want to make sure that, you know, with this pandemic, we're looking at public safety. Life safety. Those are the priorities that we're working on all the time. So that as we start to think about that, these are real issues that we're looking at in terms of prioritizing. And that's why some of that emergency essential work is still going. We got to, I think I said it earlier, maybe just to provide some context, we find out that the people are having a huge lag in certain areas about, you know, connectivity. And when the utilities take a look at that, they say, okay, how can we fix that? And then they can go back and say, you've gone from 1,000 people using the internet at this given time in this particular area to 10,000 people, it's overwhelming the system, and that's why people can't get out. So this is what we would do to augment, improve, or retrofit. So we're always looking at, from our perspective, hospitals are your number one priority. Your public safety agencies are your number one priority. Your transportation network, so that our supply chains continue to move fluidly. Those are the types of things that, how do you start to open these things up? I don't know if school's going to be open, but I can tell you right now, if we're allowed to go back in there in construction and we've got the bids, we are going, and we are going to go fast. And we're going to go fast, but we are going to be safe. And we're not going to sacrifice safety to, hit an arbitrary deadline. The safety of our citizenry, the safety of our workforce, the safety and continuation of an industry is the most important thing that we can do. And I think I know you guys are on a daily call with the mayor, flattening the curve. This is all sort of tied into that. So we don't, I want to say, build, go, move. I'm just as desirous of that as everyone else, because this is time when, we can get our materials moving. We do have access to the streets. It isn't cluttered with traffic. It isn't cluttered with cars. The safety, like, we could do a lot in the road work. So that's why the first thing coming out of the ground will be the road work, and it will be the open air stuff. So that's to create those transportation and infrastructure networks when it's easier to get in, as opposed to, the lag that you'll get just from sheer density and congestion.
So thank you. And I know, because I feel like she's raising the gavel, and so I will just say a couple things that you could speak on and in transitioning to my next colleague, but I'm curious about I understand that the substation in East Boston is being built by Eversource, not by the city, if I'm correct on that. Okay, right. Then that's not a project we would be funding or dealing with. The dock that we were hopeful for to start this summer over in Lewis Mall in East Boston, the dock that was, we were going to do we own the mall. I think the Massport was going to build the dock. There was a whole partnership, and we would have a ferry we were hopeful for. I don't know if you could speak to that, if that's even likely. And I think that, and that's it. So I will stop there, and you can answer that. And I understand that my time is probably up. Thank you, Chairwoman Bach, and thank you all to the administration for answering my questions.
Thank you, Councilor. I wish I had an answer on the Massport stuff. I don't, but I do see that as just as critical a transportation network, whether it's land, air, road, or sea. It's important, and anything that we can do to relieve congestion, especially on that part of your district in East Boston, is very important. I know the mayor thinks that very importantly too. You have no better advocate for good transportation network than Chris Osgood. He's a bright guy. Greg Rooney. They really care. They're neighborhood people that actually understand it. So I will pass that along to my colleagues and make sure that they're aware, and maybe we can make a phone call over to Massport as well to see what if anything is gone on over there.
Great. Thank you, Chief Brophy, and thank you, Councilor Edwards. Councilor Ricardo Arroyo next, to be followed by Council President Kim Janey, and then Councilor Matt O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Patrick Brophy, for the work that you did on the presentation. It was thorough. So I have sort of two questions to respect the time here, and I'll ask them both now, and you can answer them in whichever order. The first is the current projects that are in construction and shut down. In what way, if any, is that increasing costs for us, or is it not doing that? That'd be good to know whether or not those shutdowns in any way increase cost and how they do that. And then the second is I have several projects in the district that residents are very excited for. There's some renovations happening in BCYF, right? So the Mattahunt and Rosendale Community Center. I know the Rosendale Community Center had a pipe break. I'm not aware of how much those repairs cost, or if that's factored into the money budgeted to do those repairs and what the status of all of that is. But also the project itself as a whole. And so just those two things, where we are on those things.
Councilor, thank you very much for your call. I would be remiss if I didn't say, please say hello to your dad as well. I hope he's doing well. So current construction cost, that's something that, again, we're going to have to take a hard look at. This isn't this, you know, now we're getting into like contract language a little bit. And this is sort of the deep dive into details. In our front end specification, we try to make we think of anything that could possibly go wrong with a project and absolve ourselves from it. So things like an act of God or a pandemic are actually called out in some of our front end specifications. Not really thinking, you know, when you think of an act of God, you're thinking of a hurricane or a major snowstorm or something to that effect. A pandemic is something that, again, we're all experiencing for the first time, and there is a playbook. There is going to be a cost. And I'm not sure what those costs will be, but I can tell you right now that we are going to be working very closely with our legal team and our project team to evaluate each and every claim and each and every cost. It's going to be grinding people a little bit, and I'm sure people are going to be frustrated with that level of minutia when we get into it because they just want to get back to work. But I can see a scenario where projects that have been put out to bid and we have called out specific safety plans and specific, you know, like I said, down to the screws. Every single thing that we have, we need to have 3 or approved equals, and we need to line that stuff up. That's something that we are absolutely looking hard at. But we didn't put into it a new safety plan. We didn't anticipate that we are going to have a whole new level of hand washing and sanitary and facilities and safety officers and gate checks and all these things that we are going to require that the city and inspectional services is going to require for you to be allowed to do the work that you're permitted to do. So that's the city at ISD, and then there's the city with us as the contracting agent and the construction group. So what we want to do there is make sure that we're still getting what we deserve. We're going to look and analyze any cost that may be above and beyond what they bid on and what there was expected in that now we're forcing them to do. So there's that cost. But then there's the cost of recovery. So what is that cost of recovery? How do you quantify that cost of recovery? There's a lot that goes into that. Right off the bat, we're going to be asking everyone for a recovery schedule. Now, some of those recovery schedules may work to our advantage. Some of them don't work to our advantage. We're going to do that analysis with the user department and their constituencies to help make sure that people understand, like, we can't be late on the Adams Branch or the Rosendale Library. Those need to move. Or can they be delayed 2 months? And then do I not have to worry about that schedule? I keep going back to the BAA. The BAA is I absolutely feel 100% confident in saying it will be the standard bearer for North America. And I just want to put like a period on that sentence. This is going to be the most amazing purpose-based arts academy school, definitely in the country. And I would say throw in Canada and Mexico. It's going to be amazing. It is going to be amazing. But the schedule's tight. And it's a very, 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 very specific program. And it doesn't fit well with other things. There's specific furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Those are all being worked on. Those are all trying to be supplied. Those are all coming at a certain time. And the schedule is tight. And now we run into, neighborhood issues with access, and we run into contaminated soil, and the existing building wasn't built the way it is. So it's slowly eaten my flow. And now here we are paused. And this is becoming a little bit of an issue because I need to open that up. I need to have that ready because there are kids that are BAA students that are over attending school over in Dorchester, and that we're planning to get them back here for September of next year. If I can't recover that schedule, we could be looking at a mid-year move-in. I don't know how long this pause will last. But if we were to start tomorrow, which we're not, but if we were to start tomorrow and we were to ask for that recovery schedule, we would be asking for extended days. We would be asking for 6 or 7 days worth of work. We don't know what parameters we'll be allowed to review and go through, but these are the types of things that, like hospitals, research, homeless facilities, these types of things are things that we are working on. And so when you add up those costs for remobilization add in those costs for the safety plan, add in those costs for the additional cost for overtime, the additional manpower. All these things start to have a cumulative effect, and those markups happen as well. It also extends our design contract. The designers are going to be on the hook for longer. They're going to be looking to review plans. They're going to be looking to expedite things. So those costs all are going to be like quantified, but they are going to be specific for each project. So I don't have I can't say it's going to be a 10% upgrade, because it could be 20% on one job and 0 on another. So we are going to be working very, very, very closely with the budget department. We are going to be looking very closely within our own expertise and staff, and we will be farming out these additional costs or these change orders or these change order proposals. We will be farming those out to independent third-party estimators and our people to make sure that those costs that are submitted to us and reviewed by the in-house designers and our in-house people are in line with a third-party review of that. So at the end of the day, we all have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Boston, and we're not budging off of it. We're going to fight for every single dollar that we can, but there is going to be a cost. So everything will, something like the pandemic, Counselor, as you are acutely aware, it is going to have a cost on time and a cost on money. So that's going to be tough there. To your second question on Rosendale. The Rosendale Community Center, it did experience a flood. This was pre-pandemic. It did a lot of damage there. We are looking, we have undergone repairs with that in terms of just like mitigation on that. But the current budget for that community center is about $2.1 million, and we are looking to work that through as well. So that's something that is happening. The Rosendale Library is still happening. Hyde Park Community Center is still happening. We are still moving on all of those. And while I just have a moment, I wanted to make sure that I noted for Councilor Edwards, even though I know her time expired, we are finalizing design at the location at 189 Paris Street for a new school. We purchased that property from a local CDC. It's expanding capacity. We are finalizing the design on that. We are moving forward with that as well. So, Councilor Arroyo, I hope that
Thank you.
Our question. Thank you, Councilor. We're excited to see things happening in District 5. As a former resident in District 5, there is a special place for the Hyde Park Library and the Hyde Park Community Center. I spent a lot of time at both those locations, and the Rosendale Community Center did get a big upgrade from its initial estimate and initial budget allocation. Mayor last year increased that about $3 million up to $10 million to increase the space down in the cellar. So the mayor sees the value in that library and the value in that business district and the value of the coordination with that and the community center. So back to Councilor Flaherty's point about the holistic approach, we think that, you know, the work that we're doing in the streetscape there, along with the community center, along with the library, are great things. And just a point of reference with the Renew Boston Trust, one of the things that we did over at Rosendale was we put in some solar panels there, and I think we're saving somewhere between $800 and $1,000 a month on energy costs. So that was something that was spearheaded by your colleague, Councilor O'Malley, and something that Chief Cook worked very, very hard on, and we were happy to sign the wetlands ordinance out in Rosendale and do the groundbreaking at the Rosendale Community Center and do the flick of the switch for the Renew Boston stuff that's already paying dividends as soon as we turn that switch on. So we are looking forward to it, and we love Hyde Park.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the answer on construction was well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Next up is Council President Kim Janey, followed by Councilor Matt O'Malley, and then Councilor Julia Mejia.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Many thanks to the administration, the entire panel. Thank you, Chief Brophy, for a very thorough presentation. I'd like to, one, I know it's impossible to predict around COVID the impact in terms of timeline, but I'd be interested in what your thinking is in terms of phasing things in. So we know we're not going to flip on a switch and everything's going to go back. So in my mind, while schools are closed, it might be important to try to get a lot of that work done during the closure. Is that what you're thinking in terms of phasing in?
Absolutely, Councilor. Couple of comments on that. We the way we plan these things is there's a significant amount of time and review of the locations, and we bid these things. So there's a set amount of design, then there's a set amount of bid, and then there's a set amount of construction. And I say that just to give you a reference point that we were planning to go into school in June, at the end of June. So when we design this stuff, that's what all of our teams have been designing to: a bid in May, bid results in June, notice to proceed, and contract execution at end of June. And as we're looking at this, and we couldn't really tell, is school going to stay open? Are we going to get back in there? What are we going to do? Am I going to be delaying the start of bid? Because are we going to be into the late June? You know, I didn't know if we were going to go back to school and, you know, Memorial Day and then go through into late June. So we didn't really know what we could do with bidding, but we asked our design team to expedite their designs. So I can tell you that right now we're bidding the My Way Cafe. We picked up almost a month on the My Way Cafe, and we will be doing that with the ARPs, and we will be doing that on any project that, you know, on a building that's close. So we do it. I'd love to get in there right now, but really I have to bid it, and it needs to be a cohesive set of design documents. And once that comes in, we'll be bidding that. We're picking up time. You know, even if I get in at the beginning of June, I've still picked up almost 4 weeks on a total 8-week schedule. So I've picked up, you know, 50% of float. That's an amazing opportunity for us. So yes.
Can I add this, Chief? So I think the investment in our city is amazing, particularly as a district councilor. I'm really excited about the investment in my district, particularly with many of the projects that I've been advocating for in my tenure on the city council, which hasn't been that long. Certainly excited, as you know, about the library in Nubian Square. It looks like it's almost done.
So good.
Yeah, and as you know, I had grave concerns when I first started in this role because the numbers in terms of meeting the BRJP goals were so far off the mark. There certainly has been a lot of improvement since we started paying attention to the project. It's almost done. We're looking at a ribbon cutting what month, assuming things, work continues in the next few weeks or months. We're looking at this year for the ribbon cutting. That's the hope and the goal, right?
Yeah. A couple of things. One, I just do have to mention your avatar. I can see the Dudley, the bowling building in the background, and
yes.
We spent an awful lot of time going over the Ferdinand Blue store to get that window mullion exactly right, and to see that in the background of your avatar is nice.
Chief, I have a lot of specific district-related questions, many of which I asked in the working session, looking for those answers. But for my remaining time here, two big things for me, as you know, making sure that the city is doing more to achieve what I hope are goals around contracting and procurement. So really interested for these capital projects, what plans have been put in place to ensure that we are getting more diverse bids coming in and that we're putting more people to work. So certainly the MBEs, WBEs really important. And then the other thing I would ask specific to the investment in bathrooms, which I think is amazing, 10 million over 4 years for students. You know, I'm amazed that bathrooms in schools tend to be like the nastiest place on the planet. I wonder what opportunities folks are thinking about, and maybe this is more for Dr. Caselius, about involving young people in the design and really getting them to buy in to these projects, whether it's about, you know, murals and paintings so that we don't deal with the graffiti and all of that happens. I wonder too, are there plans to install vape detectors? How are we thinking about making, obviously it's impossible to COVID-proof anything, but you know, hand-free is great in a bathroom, a public bathroom. So I would hope that those are things that we're thinking about as we renovate these bathrooms. Many things we're telling people to wash their hands for 20 seconds. Many of these timers on the faucets don't even stay on for 20 seconds. So as we renovate bathrooms in our schools, I just wonder what opportunities there are to involve our young students, as well as making different designs for a safer world. And then I would like follow-up on my district questions at some point. And Madam Chair, you can help me understand how that follow-up will happen. Thank you, Chief Brophy.
Thank you, Madam President. Quickly, the project at the Dudley, the library in Nubian Square is at 95%. Furnishings are about to be delivered, and everything at this time is on hold. The project currently does have a temporary C of O, so that is a good thing. Public Works is doing some sidewalk work, and that is in coordination with the MBTA, so they're working together on a shared dig in there to do that renovation work out there. You know, the BRJP, we are disappointed in that general contractor for a variety of reasons. The total BRJP numbers in totality are 28% Boston residents, 44% people of color, and 4% females. And so we did miss the mark on female and Boston residents on that. This is a contractor that's almost, you know, he doesn't have any of his own folks, so he kind of contracts everything out. Not terribly thrilled with the way in which he's managed that job, but we are happy with the way that it is coming together. We absolutely will be doing a ribbon cutting this year. It's 100%. I don't know the exact date, but as soon as we get a chance to get in there, we're real close to the finish line, and you will be very, very, very pleased with the way that goes on.
It looks amazing, and I think it's really important, and it looks like it's happening, that the Complete Streets design that we're also working on, as well as the old B2 police station and the plans for that. It looks like it's all coming together, which obviously would be the goal. I see the gavel is up. I certainly have lots of questions regarding parks and playgrounds and Complete Streets and other specific District 7 items, and happy to follow up with the appropriate people in the administration or on a next round of questions if that is possible. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again to the panel.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Council President. Yeah, so just so folks understand, the administration did on the questions annotate like in a few categories where some things would go to streets and parks or BPS. And I think I certainly asked a huge number of questions about streets and parks issues in District 8 that I am expecting to have discussed in that hearing or information forwarded me in advance. So I think that's what, with those specific project questions, we're forwarding a bunch of those to the departments that know the projects best. But I will now go on to Councillor Matt O'Malley, to be followed by Councillor Julia Mejia and then Councillor Liz Breeden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Chief Brophy, for that very expansive and loquacious presentation. We've covered a lot. You did a great job. I look forward to this hearing, perhaps more than any other during the budget process. For those colleagues who may be a little bit newer to the body than I, this is a really exciting hearing because you get to see those projects that we advocate for and care about. I remember early days of trying to advocate on behalf of Millennium Park Phase 2 and Jamaica Plain Branch Library, and glad to see both of those projects were completed over the last several years. So thank you for your great partnership through Mayor Walsh and his team. Obviously, I don't need to be repetitive. What many of us have said, this is a very unusual capital budget hearing, as we have a very aggressive approach. The mayor has a very expansive vision on what he wants to see built, but we recognize the sheer enormity of what we were up against. Latest numbers today show upwards of 20% or close to 20% of Massachusetts residents have filed for unemployment benefits. I mean, we are up against a economic downturn unlike anything we've ever seen, and obviously that will be directly impactful to our work. However, we're at a place now where we had a very strong fiscal year last year, and obviously probably the strongest development year in Boston's history. So it's exciting to see what those investments will mean. And I think that you can make the case on the importance of investing not only in important issues like the Long Island campus, which I'm glad to see, work proceed there. Obviously works in our schools, something that's so important, but also parks and open space. I know we'll get into that in a more higher level of specificity at the relevant hearing. But suffice it to say, Chief, I know I've talked with you offline, I've talked with the mayor, I've talked with others. We're delighted, I've talked with Chief Cook, obviously, delighted to see the investment in Billingsfield in West Roxbury as it relates to some light upgrades, some other entrances. But we really need a full renovation there, and we recognize the challenges, but just given the fact that people are obviously clamoring for more outdoor space, given the fact that unlike most outer neighborhoods, which have seen a significant decrease in school-age population, there's been a 16% increase over the last 20 years in West Roxbury. Anything we can do to expedite and highlight and really uplift the need for a full renovation of Billings Field, a field I know you know well in West Roxbury, is really among my top priorities this budget season. So want to get some feedback on that. Similarly, excited about what's in store for the Court Street, as well as the Plaza. Excited to see those things. So I don't need to rehash that. You gave a great overview on that stuff. But my two questions I'd like to close with, obviously, Billings Field and also the Jamaica Plain Fire Station. I believe it's ladder 49. I may have the number wrong, but I know that there's been money allocated for that and there's been a delay, obviously. So just, do you know what the timeline is specifically on that, and obviously recognizing the fact that can be adjusted given what we're up against. So thank you all.
Counselor, thank you very much, and thank you very much for pushing us constantly. I remember many phone calls in the many conversations in the executive garage about zero net carbon, when we're both on our way home, and we had caught up in an hour-long conversation as we're starting our cars up. But thank you for that. I think it's your advocacy and what we're doing as an administration, and the mayor's vision for zero net carbon is akin to like the newness of LEED a decade ago. It's going to become commonplace, and it's going to become something that's interesting. You brought up the fire department. I'm gonna defer the Billings conversation because that's obviously a Chief Cook and Commissioner Ryan Wood's conversation, and I will forward that your concerns to them. I know they had a working session recently, so they will be up to speed on that. I'm sure they'll have a response for you on that. Engine 42 is the one in Jamaica Plain. It's the first brand new one. We're ripping it down and building a new one. It's going to be an amazing facility. It's really going to do something. It's really going to be special. It does actually have a community room in a fire facility, and it does actually have opportunities for them to do some training at the site on the building about going up and down into the buildings, which is something that's unique and interesting as well. It will be a really amazing site. It will change the way that corner looks like. We did run into a little bit of delay there. The delay is the building was drawn to be built one way, and when we got into it, we found A, contaminated soil, and B, piles in the ground that weren't expected to be there, and the subsurface, the structure of the subsurface was not as hardy as we wanted it to be. So we had to tack and go from what we were doing for original stabilization to mini helical piles, and so that's going to be done. It's being worked out. It is going to have another cost, but it is moving. We have moved the firefighters out into temporary facilities. There is no delay in service. And once this construction pause goes, we're going to be going hard at that as well. So that project is moving along, and we've got a good team and a good project team going out there to do that. So that will be, that's happening.
I appreciate that, Pat, and thank you for referencing the net zero carbon. It was a great partnership to be with so many colleagues at the mayor's executive order signing last December. It was truly was a prideful day in my career on this body. So I'm grateful for your partnership. That's one of the ways we can have the most profound impact going forward as it relates to lowering our greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor, just as an aside on that, and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Counselor, I just wanted to let you know as well, as part of our Renew Boston Trust, one of the things that we're looking at is using air handler units and mini units, all electrical, to heat some of the smaller firehouses, because then we don't have to go and put gas in there and do that stuff. So it's, again, these are that Renew Boston Trust has given us an opportunity to heat the building differently. And we're looking at that as, okay, these are smaller buildings that maybe we don't have to rely on gas, and we can do things like that. So it's a different way of thinking, and usually, okay, put a big robust boiler in there and get it up off the ground and go.
And now the mini splits are always more cost effective than traditional equipment. So it's a win-win for the taxpayers and a win-win for the planet.
Yeah, and we're starting at fire, so thank you for your advocacy. I appreciate it. And for the record, just so folks know, I come from a family of 4 boys. I'm the Latin Academy guy. My 3 brothers all went to Latin school, so I've been hearing my whole life how Latin Academy thing. So again, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Malley. Councillor Julia Mejia to be followed by Councillor Breeden and then Councillor Baker. Before we go to Julia, I just want to note for anyone watching at home that obviously it's we are not yet in the revolving fund hearing, which was meant to start at 1 o'clock. We're running over, a fact which I'm going to blame on Chief Brophy, whose presentation has been described as loquacious and thorough, but was also simply long. So we are going to continue with questions for now. And if you are tuning in to watch the revolving fund hearing, you should know that will follow the conclusion of this hearing. So now Julia Mejia, Councillor Mejia is up next.
Thank you, Councillor Bach, and thank you, Chief Brody and the team. I have to start off by saying that I did not go to Latin, and I don't know what's all this Latin love up in here, but I went to Dorchester High. And I don't know your mom or your dad, and you do not coach any of my kids. So we're gonna have to work on that now that I work in this, in City Hall. Maybe we can figure that out. But Dorchester Bears all day, every day. That's right. So I do have some questions though, just 3. You'll be lucky. One is specifically around the F21 budget says that there's $0 allocated to language access through ONS, but that they have multiple employees who speak other languages who are not formally in the language pool. I guess my question is, what languages are spoken in your department, and how accessible are those employees to constituents who don't speak English? My other question, and I'll just give you all the 3 questions at once, and then we can take it from there, is Councillor Bach asked about capacity in regards to the increased number of projects. And I'm just curious, PFD is asking for $100,000 in overtime. This isn't a change in the funding change between FY20 and FY21, right? But I'm curious to know how many hours per week or per month employees in PFD work. The third question is in regards to, I know that Councillor President Janey asked about the need to be more diverse in our bids. I'm just curious how many contracts in 2019 went to minority and business owners. Just curious if you happen to have that number. And I actually do have one more question, I lied. One is about the bathrooms. I'm really excited to see there's gonna be the bathroom redesign. I'm just curious as to whether or not we're going to have any bathrooms that are going to be gender neutral, and what that plan looks like, because I know a lot of people don't feel comfortable in gendered only space bathrooms. So I'm just wondering if you have gender neutral bathroom planning in your design. And this is something that, this is a bonus question. Ready? I'm curious, when I look through the City Hall, I'm just wondering if there would be an opportunity to have some of our doors be handicap accessible. I know coming into the main office in in the council office, unless it's open, if you are on handicap, you won't be able to access it. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to have it more handicap accessible to folks. And Then the other question is that I'm just curious in terms of the signage in City Hall. Everything is in English, and what I have found myself often doing is directing people who don't speak English or who don't know how to read in English where they should go. So I'm just wondering whether if there was an opportunity to put some money aside in the budget to help create a space where people who may not know how to speak English still know where they can get the services that they're seeking. And thank you so much for your work. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate the comments, and welcome to the body. I'm happy to see you here, and look forward to developing a relationship and helping you out on anything that we can possibly do. I'll hit you with a couple of responses here. Number one, language access. I'm going to defer that question to Justin after I rip through mine as well. I think that that's something that's in the neighborhood services budget, and he could probably talk a little bit about that. You asked how many people in my office, what languages they speak. There's 6 other languages other than English spoken at public facilities, and because we're part of the operations cabinet, we can utilize not only my colleague over with Jerome Smith, Chief Jerome Smith over at Neighborhood Services, but we have a pretty robust translation services over at Inspectional Services. So at any given time, we're always going to be able to communicate with our partners that do not speak English as their primary language. At PFD, we have people who can speak Spanish, Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean Creole, Cambodian, Portuguese, and French. That's there. The hours on overtime, it is a modest number given the sheer magnitude of the $1 billion oversight. $100,000. Generally, our overtime would be captured. It's a clerk or a project manager. The clerks are when the job goes beyond a typical 8-hour job and they got to work later hours. We want our people there to make sure that what we're buying is getting installed. And so it's basically the eyes and ears. They're the tattletales. They're the ones that tell us that they're trying to cheat us. So we want someone there. And if they want to work overtime, we ask them to pick up the cost of that overtime. So the $100,000 is really a place marker for things like, you know, with the exception of 5 people at public facilities, maybe 5 to 10 people, everyone is covered under a collective bargaining agreement, either through SEIU or CENA. It's mostly CENA. And so if they work beyond their 35 hours, they are entitled to overtime. Those things would be like a community meeting. You know, if they go out and do a meeting on design, we don't have a contractor that we can send the money back to, and we don't have a specific like chargeback. So those night meetings or those emergency call outs where we may need someone, that's where that overtime and that placeholder, I would say it's a microcosm of the overall budget, but it is there just in case folks need to go above and beyond. We do have a lot of people that are standard 35-hour work week people that put in 45 hours and don't put a penny in for overtime. But when we ask someone to go out and do 3 hours at L Street or something like that, I'm not getting paid, I'm salaried, but the people that are out there are. And we do want to be fair and in adherence with the collective bargaining agreement. So that's what that $100,000 is there for. It's not meant to cover overtime for a job that needs to expedite or work nights or weekends. That's not there. That's a cost that would be borne through the capital side and something that we would codify through a change order. So that's there. The BRJP, all of our project managers know. And I think there's a few people on this body that would agree with me. I wholeheartedly believe in it. These are Boston jobs. These are Boston taxpayers that pay it. Boston people should be benefiting from that work. And that's from the top down. That's from the mayor down. So we are trying to make sure that every job meeting that we starts with, what are you doing to achieve the goals of the Boston residents job policy? How do we do it? We start the meeting with that and we end it with that. And we have brought people in, as Madam President Janey had mentioned, talked about the group out at the Dudley Library. We are pulling people in, and we have them come into the hearings here with the BRJP, but also we pull them in with Chief John Barrows to talk to them about the economic impact and why it's important for them to play ball and why it's important for them to employ our citizenry. it's important. It's our dollars. It's ours. So I think that you have a full group of people who are behind you on that as well. In terms of the bathroom redesign, that is definitely a Dr. Casilius conversation. For us, we're looking at it as a bathroom refresher, and we're helping with it's a lot of it's going through the Boston Public Schools, so they're handling that as a maintenance issue, less of a major construction issue. But some of them, when we talk about redesign, I think it's probably new partitions. It's not gutting it and redoing it. It's a refresh so that the years and years and years and years and decades of abuse on the grout and the spills and everything that gets those smells that we have all experienced when you walk into it. You can scrub and clean those things all you want. The tile will be clean, but some of that is soaked into the grout. So you got to rip up the grout, retile. So that's some of that stuff. So I don't know if I'd call it a redesign or as much as a refresh. And so I don't know if there's a whole lot of opportunity for creative design in terms of non-gender conforming bathrooms. I'm not sure if that's something that the Boston School is implementing. Again, that I would defer that to the district and ask them to respond to that. I can tell you that in City Hall there are two. There are a number of them, but there are two right on the 5th floor that are gender neutral bathrooms, and they're generally single stall ones. And it's, in terms of your signage at City Hall, that's something that we worked very hard on. And as you walk in the 3rd floor, right at that main entry, there is a touch screen there that can translate all the commonly asked questions. We did, a couple of months survey about what are the most common services that people are coming to City Hall for, and they range from everything from ISD down to tax paying to everything that you can imagine at City. But then we also said, what are the other questions people are asking? And they are T related, they are state, they are Massachusetts unemployment, and they are passport and federal stuff. And we've codified all those questions. So when someone types that into the main screen, they can change the language that they want to. It will completely, everything has been totally translated into, I believe it's 11 languages, but I would have to get back to you, and you can definitely check it out and try it for yourself. And what we're also doing is we've installed all these directional signage. I agree with you. And I think anyone that's been here for a while, that City Hall is a very difficult place to navigate. And if you have never been in here and you don't speak a language and you're trying to figure out how to get to the north side of the 7th floor, good luck. Good luck finding the 4th floor on the south side. It ain't happening. But what we've done is all these digital boards are brand new, and they're all rebranded. And yes, they are in English, but we do rotate those through in different languages, and we can speed up the rapidity of that. But we're also looking at right now, when people start to come back to work, how do we restart people coming back to work? And one of the things is a complete refresh on the back end of these digital screens, so that they can be a little bit more less dependent upon language, more dependent upon vision and seeing how the floors are laid out and the maps are laid out, and what we can rotate for signage there. So I see the gavel, and again, and I do appreciate the gavel, and I do appreciate the thoroughness of your responses. But there's just one question that I don't think that was answered. It was specifically, I wanted to know how many contracts are going out to design and construction projects that are minority business owned. Just curious if there's a number, if you can give me. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I will get that to the chair and make sure that you have that. Everything that we do is required to be publicly bid. And so those are things that we can put it out there, but they need to have a certain bonding capacity. We can improve on that bonding capacity. We're working with Chief Barrows on how can we do that to improve that, and how do we funnel that down to where the bigger construction, the higher level stuff, but how do we get that down to the maintenance groups in the fire, police, all EMS, to make sure that we are following. And what we do is when we advertise, we go through that process of making sure that it goes through the Office of Economic Development, so that they can funnel all those information, all those opportunities out to their list of certified minority, women, and veteran contractors.
And you didn't. And also in regards to the request for the handicap accessibility, I just wanted to also continue to press upon that we have a youth liaison who is handicapped and is unable to open doors, and oftentimes we when we move from space to space, we have to make sure that we are helping him get to where he needs to go. And I'm just wanting to push that in terms of something else that I think would be really helpful to our able-bodied community. So just putting that out there is something that I'd like to just ask for.
Yeah, we've been very blessed to have the opportunity to showcase what we can do with the council chamber. We're very proud of that effort to make that fully accessible. It came out great. We will continue to take a look at it. Accessibility is at the forefront of the mayor's vision for an open and inclusive city hall. So we are absolutely making that part of the plaza renovation, but we're also going to be making that part of, we can take a look at whether or not that main door, if we can get a swing or a push button or something like that. We'd have to take a look at that. There's probably a little bit of a cost, but certainly happy to take a look.
It would be worth the effort, the cost. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. I look forward to working with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Next up is Councilor Breeden and then Councilor Frank Baker.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. This has been a very thorough presentation. I'm going to try and be brief and to the point. I'm excited to see that the Faneuil Branch Library renovation is on the ticket for moving forward. Do we have an estimated time to have that start?
Date on that. I will get that answer to you. Yes, I believe that's next year. So we're in design for about a year, and I think that's going to be looking like construction start in December 2020, January 22 opening.
Okay, very good. I see. I originally got the outline of the new projects for capital projects, and Jackson Mann School Study was on that at that time, and it was a $500,000 ticket item. I see now that was in addition to the Horace Mann School relocation. I see that the Jackson Mann study has dropped. Is that still in the works? So it's really important for our community because that's a school that's it's really the Jackson Mann complex is 2 schools and a community center there, and we really want to make sure that that's given some priority.
Yeah, I don't know where that shifted in the cash flow. I may have defer that to either Justin or the BC.
Councilor, let me follow back up with you after this. There's nothing changed since the piece of paper, since the original list that came out to you. So it may just be in a different department. My hunch is that because part of it is the community center and part of it is the school, it may be reflected in a different department's budget, that BCYF being the other one. But why don't I follow up to make sure that we're all on the same page for that? Because yes, that is certainly an area of priority and one that we need to sort of start spending some time and frankly money on right now to make sure we are ready to go for what BPS has in the works for over in that area.
Do we have an estimated timeline for that one? For the Jackson Mann, the whole study, and I know the school's going to close the July 2021, but do we have a timeline for when that process, to the design process, etc., will get moving?
So I think the planning and study time will happen as soon as FY21 starts and the budget is approved. Obviously, this is kind of a rapidly evolving situation, but I think we need at least a year of planning and study before the school does close.
Very good. The My Way cafes, are there any slated to be put in Alston Brighton schools?
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to pull up the date. Give me 1 second here. The Baldwin, the BGA, the Gardner Pilot Academy. I'm sure that you've heard from that principal many times. And is that it? And the Winship.
And the Winship. So that's 3?
4.
What was the Baldwin, the Gardner Pilot Academy, the Winship? What was the 4th one?
The Boston Green Academy, the BGA.
Oh, the Boston Green Academy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And similar to, sorry, I interrupt you. The, the
I was just going to say, to clarify on the Jackson Man School study, there is it's a $500,000 project with $250,000 slated to start in FY21 to get them started on that study.
Is there, because if the school closes in 2021 in July, does that include identifying swing space in the neighborhood for those students, or this is a question?
No, so this is definitely a question that Bill BPS and the BPS folks can flesh out more, but this would just be for the study to work on that.
Okay, thank you. The Alston Brighton Mobility Study has been going on for about 18 months, and it will come up with recommendations for street realignment, traffic calming. Is there any allocation of funds to try and implement those recommendations?
I would defer that as streets to Chief Osgood. I don't have any answer on that. I'm sorry.
So what I would say, and we can certainly follow up with specifics, but all the investments on the capital side in transportation are all around improving the state of good repair for our roads, bridges, sidewalks, pedestrian ramps. So as the mobility study makes recommendations and projects start, all of the recommendations will be filtered into all the projects that go on in the Alston Brighton corridor. So basically that'll be the kind of roadmap that we use. And as projects come up through the plan, they'll implement the guidelines that the mobility study has.
Okay, thank you. I think the state of play with the repairs to the District's 14 police station, are those completed at this stage? There was monies for a new roof and monies for new windows. Where are we at with that?
Let me pull that right up right now. Hold on, I'm looking. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, Counselor.
No trouble. Take your time. I'm sure the gavel's going to get waved in a minute, but
yeah, we are running out. So if you have another question, Counselor, maybe ask it while the chief is looking for that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much. This has been a very thorough. I think the beauty of being in District 9 is you get to the very end and you get to hear everybody else's conversation. So thank you so much. This is a very thorough presentation, and I learned a lot. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I will get that answer back to you ASAP.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Breeden. Counselor Baker is up next, and then just for people's reference, we will run through a second round. It'll be kind of like a 1 or 2 questions you have rather than taking a full 5 minutes. But we'll go next to Counselor Baker. I want to note, has been with us from the beginning. He joined.
It's frozen.
Hello?
Hi, Counselor, I can hear you.
Hey, Pat, how are you?
Good, nice to see you, sir.
Yeah, I didn't know you changed your name. You're Pat Brody now, are you? Thanks, Pat. That was a good presentation. Thanks for your time. Justin, thanks for what you do. I feel that District 3 is in a good place with Garvey Park, with the planning on McConnell Park, the library, Downer Park. It's exciting to hear that we're still talking about and moving forward the Long Island Bridge and campus. I think collectively that is potentially one of the most important things that we as a city should be doing and can be doing. I guess one of my questions is, how do we see sidewalk repair playing out? And I know that we can probably wait till Public Works, maybe if have an answer for that, because we're in sidewalk season now and nothing, and obviously nothing happening. Are we going to need to wait till get total clearance for construction, or can we go out with skeleton crews on that sort of stuff? And if I need to wait till Public Works, that's fine too.
Yeah, no, I think I can answer, but I obviously would defer final answer to Chief Osgood. But We agree with you wholeheartedly that the street repair program and the sidewalk repair program are incredibly important. And one of the things that when we talked about restarting construction, the first thing that we are looking to do is horizontal work. So that's the stuff that's the safest. It's the road work, it's the street work, it's the sidewalk work, because it's open air and because guys are going to be able to socially distance over a long stretch. So that is something that will be one of the first things that go out, absolutely. And just a quick thing, and I'm sorry to take your time, Councilor, the roof project at D14 is going out to bid very soon. So we should be starting construction, you know, give it 6-8 weeks after we receive the bid, and then construction part starts. And I apologize.
That's quite all right. I try and play well in the sandbox, Pat, you know.
Thank you.
So the street repairs are going to be important, and also the traffic calming measures. I think I'm going to be looking to push a lot, as many as I possibly can in my district. There's certain areas that I've been asking for them for years. I just want to make one comment on gender neutral bathrooms in the schools. I hope if that is a topic of discussion, I hope that comes in front of us for vetting. I hope that isn't something that we just decide that we're going to roll out gender neutral bathrooms, third graders going in the bathroom together. I'd be very concerned about that. So thank you for all the work that you do. And one other point that I want to make, the year the print department closed for $1 million, public facilities overtime budget was $750,000. We closed over $1 million. And that's the type of work that's happened with this new administration. You're keeping your eyes on the overtime and that sort of stuff, and I appreciate that work. Thank you again, Pat. Thank you, and hopefully we're going to be able to go to Adams Corner Library pretty soon. Enjoy.
Thank you, Councilor, very much, and thank you for your support over the years.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Yeah, and I will just stress, we'll do a really quick second round of questions, both for our panelists, because we have another hearing, and then there's another hearing at 3:30, and our council staff is working incredibly hard to make it possible for us to do all of these. So my quick two questions, one will be for you, Pat. The West End, there's a $100,000 for the property that's very eagerly sort of thing to get RF this year. I see that that's 21 and FY2, so that seems like a bit of a delay. And then I also asked in sort of questions about sort of the scope for that RFP, which I think is under PFD's jurisdiction, just because I think there's a strong desire. There's a lot of interest in that being a site for the housing on public assets conversation. There's a bunch from the Friends group of interest in how you program the outdoor space right in front of the library, along with the sort of library facility space. There's a lot of need for it as a community center. It's really one of the most used branch libraries in the whole system. And it does a lot of informal community center work now. It has the West End, North End food pantry, which has been closed and which we're really feeling the lack of in my district right now. That was closed because of the pandemic. But the library facilities are not built to support a food pantry, et cetera. So I just think asking you about timeline and the capaciousness of that study that we'll be asking for. And then I guess my other one, I won't even make a question so much as a comment, which is just as we work on Renew Boston and the ESCOs. In my prior life, I spent some time during the ESCOs that had been, sorry, one second. About the ESCOs from sort of the early generation that the BHA was part of. And I think it's such a smart idea, right, to do our retrofitting with, the future financial benefits of energy savings. But if you don't structure them correctly, you can end up in weird places when the energy markets move in unexpected long-term ways. Just wanted to flag that I hope that's something that PFD is really thinking about as it signs those contracts. And but mainly want to ask about the West End Library.
Very quickly, the Renew Boston is something that we look at from a constructability and payback perspective, and we work very, very closely with the environment, who is taking a look and tracking those utility costs, and we are obviously weighing heavily on the CFO's analysis of signing those things. So we just build it. They tell us whether or not it works with the math, and we have full faith and confidence in our budget team on that. West End Branch Library is something that is about a $200,000 study. It's going to be the development of 2 library studies that include mixed use and affordable housing is something to take a look at in a possible public-private partnership and whether or not that works. We will be looking at the development of library services and the operational requirements, space program, sustainable building systems, fit test, and including mixed use. We will be reviewing the land and zoning, and we will be coming up with the cost estimates on that. And it's probably going to start in June and will take about a year to do.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right, recognizing Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Just want to touch base on something Frank, Councilor Baker said, in terms of just the street and crosswalk conditions are somewhat atrocious after, after our winter months. So as soon as we can get those crews out there to make sure that our crosswalks are clearly visible and, our signage is appropriate and also some of those intersections, the roadways, the handicap ramps, we just got to do a sort of a thorough inspection on those if possible. And then also something else that Council Baker had taken a lead on a couple of years ago. It's really taking a look at our portfolio of properties, whether it's, it's our branch libraries, it's our municipal parking lots, it's our community centers, and do we have capacity on each one of those sites to, expand parking opportunities for communities, particularly our densely populated communities, expand affordable housing, particularly senior housing. For example, in my neighborhood in the South Boston Branch Library, no reason why we couldn't put senior housing above that facility and also potentially expand into or maybe put multi-level parking in that parking lot. Again, that would help service the local businesses during sort of the working hours, et cetera. So just want to make sure that we're sort of thinking of those things. This is more geared towards Chief Brophy and maybe even Justin. Start to think a little outside the box. And Frank had a great proposal a couple of years ago, and our hope is that we're going to start to see some of that come to fruition. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We are looking at that, and that's something we're always trying to be smart about the way we use it. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Councilor Bach. And again, want to say thank you to Mayor Walsh's team. Chief, another significant project will be Engine 3 in the South End. Boston Fire Department be a major asset to the city. I know obviously that Engine 3 covers a lot of other neighborhoods. What's the latest on that, Chief?
I'll have to look that up. I don't have that off the top of my head. It's Councilor, can I get back to you with all the dates on that?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chief. And then the other issue, the other one I wanted to highlight too is similar to what Councilor Bach has mentioned. The West End Library, although it's in Councilor Bach's district, a lot of my constituents use it as well, right on the border there of Beacon Hill. But I support Councilor Bach and her advocacy of that library as well. And my final point, Chief, is I'm also a strong supporter of sidewalk repairs, especially for our seniors, for our persons with disabilities. I love to walk around my district, but I do know we do need some improvements to the sidewalks. And that's one of the biggest concerns that when I'm walking is the elderly will stop me and persons with disabilities will stop me and they'll point to specific projects or point to specific sidewalks that need help. So short-term and long-term, is that a discussion we can continue to have about, making sure our sidewalks are safe, accessible for everybody, but especially for our seniors and persons with disabilities?
Absolutely, Counselor. That's something that I know is very important to Mark Cardarelli and the Public Works team and the John Vizella. And so Chris Osgood could speak very intelligently about that size, scope, breadth, and schedule of that.
If you don't mind, I just would add, Counselor, that one of the signature investments in this year's budget in the capital side is a dramatic increase in what we're doing for our ramps and pedestrian walkways. Basically doubling the amount of ramps we rebuild every year to get to a full ADA compliance by 2030 and the tens of thousands of pedestrian ramps in the city. And that's sort of a really big increase and something we're prioritizing, that we're going to prioritize next year, but then also going forward for the next decade or so.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to highlight the incredible role of the Public Works staff. I see them out there every day. They're working hard for our city, and they're very dedicated and professional. So I know they're also working hard to make this a more safer and accessible city as well. So just wanted to pass that along as well.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Flynn. And now, Councillor Anissa Sabi-George.
Hi, everybody. I don't have any additional questions. I do know that we're bumping up. We're past, I think, our next hearing. So thank you really for, I think this has been probably the most thorough capital and public works, public facilities hearing that we've had, at least in, I think this is my fifth sort of go around, and just really appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness and thoroughness. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Justin and Chief Brophy in particular.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, you, all right, I'm gonna skip Councillor Edwards for a minute, and go to Council President Janey. Councillor Janey, you there? All right, we've got a challenge with people unmuting themselves, so we'll jump to Councillor Mejia. Any questions? People are gonna, it's all good, lose their opportunities because we have to finish this hearing. So, okay, Councillor Baker, I know you just went, but any follow-ups? Hearing none. Okay, great. All right, hearing no follow-ups from Councillor Breeden. Did I give you a? No, I didn't. Councillor Breeden, did you have any last minute things? Okay, looks like everybody is all set. Thank you for folks texting. All right, well, I think with that, since as was noted, we are past time and we have another hearing to start, we will we'll conclude this. I do want to, before we do so, just thank again both Justin and Chief Brophy, and also all of Chief Brophy's staff members who, although they didn't speak, we heard them whispering off screen. So we're grateful for your assistance on that front too. Modeling your mask there, Chief. Yeah, and so, you know, I want to just reiterate, there are a whole bunch of questions that were generated by the council that were not addressed today. Many of those pertain to the streets and parks and BPS capital portfolios. And we intend to be following up on all of those. It's definitely my objective as a chair to make sure that over the course of this process, no councillor question goes unanswered, and that we're not sort of punting those way down the line. But I think with many of them, certainly including my own about District 8, there are other folks who can answer them best. So we look forward to that and want to thank again everyone for their participation. And with that, this hearing of the Means Committee is now concluded. Thank you. Thanks so much. We will, for folks, we will start the revolving funds hearing at 2 o'clock and hopefully make that a relatively hearing. So thank you all.